Marable that was really interesting, right? Is that it was very weird how he passed away a little bit after he did that interview. And it was very fishy. I tried to do research and said what happened to him, all that, and there was no details. It made no sense how there was no details because he was kind of promoting this upcoming book, and then all of a sudden there's no media. It would be the opposite if you were promoting, especially if you're promoting.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then what was even more interesting, and I haven't read the book. I had to read parts. I have books that respond to the book.
Okay.
So Manning Marable's book was published posthumously, you know what I'm saying? But it was totally different, and it had none of the appendix that I was talking about that he was talking about, but he was talking about, and it had none of the details in that fashion. Instead, it was insinuating that he was homosexual, and it had all this like stuff that was about Malcolm. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not what Manning was saying that he was going to write. And then all of a sudden, it turned into like a negative thing, a hateful thing, and really going on rumors and innuendo and speculation. I said, this is not what he was saying he was writing about. Yeah, and it was like, yo, the conspiracy in my head till this day. You know what I'm saying? I have those books too. If you want to see the counter, if you want to see the book that was published and the counter that was written by, I think Jared Bell was the one who helped write that, disagreeing with it, rightfully so, about the book. But it was very interesting, that whole thing. You know, it makes you think about Roots and Alex Haley and all these things that go along with that. But Malcolm and the Fathers definitely had different paths, but they were on the same wavelength on a lot of levels. It's really my point with that. You know what I mean? And it's very, very powerful, you know? But that was something that was very, very intriguing. You know what I mean? Very intriguing. You know, it was almost like I really think that Manning Marable's manuscript was manipulated. You know what I'm saying? And if that's not using my acronyms well, I don't know what is.
There's reason to believe that.
Peace. Peace to the earth. Peace, God. Anybody have any questions, let me know. What I was speaking on was about Manning Marable's book that was supposed to actually be written and add on details about Alex Haley, you know, and the making of the Malcolm X autobiography, what was missing. And what was missing, I remember from an interview on Democracy Now! Was an actual appendix about his plan for revolution, like how it could be done, how you could unite people, all of these things. And then all of a sudden, Manning Marable mysteriously dies. I could never find the research about that. And then what was also interesting was that the book that actually came out that Manning Marable wrote was not in the vein of what he was talking about. It wasn't like it was somebody else promoting it. This is what he said, and it didn't come out what he said. You know, in the interview, if you're trying to sell your book and you supposedly found out that he had done homosexual things and things like that, you definitely would have said that in the interview. You know what I'm saying? Especially in a liberal forum like Democracy Now! That is very pro all of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? They love all the letters. You know what I'm saying? So it would have made sense. But then none of the revolution was extra revolutionary parts were in it. That was the thing that really got me. You know what I mean? And there was a counter book refuting a lot of the stuff that was in that published Manning Marable book about Malcolm. And I've never read those books because I would have to read the other one first. And it gets me angry. So I just didn't read it. I just kept it as a reference. You know what I'm saying? One day I might go into them because I have a lot of Malcolm X books. You know what I'm saying? All the Malcolm X books about his lectures or his own speeches, I read all of those. Okay. You know what I'm saying? But the books about him, they're more frustrating to read. You know what I'm saying? But thinking on those lines, though, those pathways of what the father and what Malcolm were doing, they were very similar, but in totally different veins, totally different roads to really the same similar place. But that's one of the errors too that was in Alex Haley's autobiography, was that Malcolm was completely against what Elijah was teaching. You know what I'm saying? I think that he just had his own thoughts about what Elijah was doing, and he didn't necessarily agree. And what didn't make sense was really sometimes we revere a teacher and we expect certain things out of them. But Elijah was a teacher that was saying that he's not going to live out the lesson that he's teaching you. You know, he would say that. So if he wanted you to be monogamous, he wasn't going to be monogamous.
Oh, I'll get it.
It's not about me. I'm the messenger.
I'm just a messenger.
I'm just a messenger. Don't be, you know what I'm saying? Right? I'm just a messenger. Don't look at my life like that. You know what I'm saying? And it's different. He's making moves, and it makes sense. He's making moves that you're not going to understand. You're not going to see him from that distance. You know what I'm saying? Especially in a hierarchical organization where the higher up you go, there are less people, and they know more. So you have to go up higher to know more. You know, so the people down at the low end of the totem pole is a wider base, like a pyramid, right? But they don't know as much. You know, but that's something that was very interesting. And if anybody wants those books, you email me. I have a lot of those books, the books I'm mentioning and stuff like that. Or if you never read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which is, you know, it's kind of a necessary read, though. You know, even if the things I'm disagreeing with, though, that should be a read because it's a very easy read. And one of the things that Alex Haley, as a great novelist, as a great writer, he really captures the mentality of Malcolm X as he goes from Detroit Red and all of these things, you know, mentalities into being Malcolm X, though. So it's still a worthy read. You know, it's just Manny Marable was adding those details that were, you know, that were very profound. You know what I'm saying? So that was the thing, you know. But I have all those books, you know. Yeah. You know, one thing, since we have the YouTube here and everything like that, and you're here, Mom, you know, one of the things that's interesting about the online community, and, you know, you check out videos and stuff like that, you know, what's very interesting is this is a nation where we show and prove who we are. You know what I'm saying? We make known who we are. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, people don't understand and think it's ego that if I say I'm speaking on a video or I'm speaking in this classroom that gets streamed, that we're not on equal footing. It's not because I'm saying I'm superior. It's because I'm saying we're literally not on equal footing. You can see me. You know who I am. I have made myself known. And the people that speak, especially comment on the videos, they speak as if they're part of this nation and have ideas, and you're not. If you write on a video, or like you're on a Law School of Mecca page and you see a video of me and you write down ideas that you have, disagreements or whatever about what I'm saying is wrong or anything like that, you're not in this. You're speaking as if you are, but you haven't made yourself known. See, if I was anonymous and you couldn't see my face, so I could say my name and a history goes along with it. You see what I'm saying? I've worked hard to make myself known and share this. That's not what you see on the YouTube. Be careful, because a lot of conversations in real life though are mirroring this incorrect way of communicating. Somebody comes, and this is one of my brothers though, he's a great MC. He had this problem, and I just want to address it as well. If somebody comes up to you and you say, you know, I'm in this nation, and you say their name, you know, let's say you don't give them your history, so they assume they don't know, and they go and they just see you and they say, well, what's today's math and shit? That's incorrect. The first thing to do is to find out who you are and what your name is and what level of knowledge are you at. Like, what do you know? And then from that, what do you know? What do you understand? Like, who are you? Oh, your name's Muhammad though. Well, who are you learning from? Is that a righteous name? You know what I'm saying? Is that a name that you chose in this nation? Or anything like, these are the questions you should be getting. I'm so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? Or you're a newborn. Well, who are you learning from? Who are you getting this knowledge from? Who are you building with? You know what I'm saying? This is the things that is important, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I see that going on. It's hilariously funny, because I take it like that when I see people write, especially on the Allah School of Mecca pages and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And they make assumptions about my life, and they literally haven't checked the resume. Cue Lord Finesse right there. You know, check the resume. But they haven't, and it's funny. You know what I'm saying? Telling me about what I've done in this, what I've done in that. You know what I'm saying? It's very interesting. I thought there would be so much more controversy in these videos that I had put on recently because I was more rugged. I was more, I was definitely more hip hop mode. But it seems more because I can't criticize, an MC as opposed to the details of what I was given. You know what I'm saying? And it shows why people aren't good students though. They hear what they want to hear. You know what I'm saying? I even got this thing where I had said something about KRS-One that was a jewel. I quoted KRS-One. Now, in that particular video, I didn't say anything else about it. I just agreed with this one statement. And I quoted what he said, right? I think I was saying KRS-One teaches that woman is God and shit like that. And how could you quote somebody like that? And I'm like, hey, you're not making any sense though. First of all, I have a lot of respect for KRS-One. You know what I'm saying? I've actually built with him for a long time.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't agree with that. He's not in this nation, so I don't agree with a lot of the things that he says. You know what I'm saying? Just out of disagreement, not because I think he's violently wrong or shit like that. Just I don't see that. You know what I'm saying? But there's hundreds of things I agree with because he really is a great teacher. He's a great builder. You know what I'm saying? But it's funny the way people have a framework, a false framework. You know what I mean? And this might be being exposed because of who I am, and maybe people just have that issue and they can't get over it. But it's interesting to see that. So whether you're online and stuff, this is the way that you're going to build. Choose, because people will say things about this nation, and you'll read it and you'll think it's true. It's almost like these adults are like the way children are. You know what I'm saying? Like my daughter will watch a video and she'll go, "Oh, YouTube videos. Like, oh, is it true? Because he said this about that." I'm like, I answer it though, but I know that kids are gullible. They're gonna think that something there is for real and stuff like that. But at least she's asking. You know what I mean? They're actually believing themselves, you know what I'm saying? And they haven't even been here. You know what I'm saying? People telling me about the school, they ain't never been here. They're telling me about, oh, well, somebody teaching at the school would never say that. And I was like, I literally said this while I'm inside the school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, this is the kind of things, like we really got to do the knowledge. Sometimes knowledge is very simple. Just do the knowledge though. See, let the people that are fraudulent expose themselves. You know what I'm saying? But and I don't know, I got the most hell for saying that the Wu-Tang didn't all go under the study, but they did, and I know that personally because I knew Freedom Allah. I knew Papa Wu. That was my big brother. I knew him, so I knew who was really learning and stuff like that because the Wu-Tang is a huge influence in my life as a writer, as a creator, right? All of these things, and even coming here to get the knowledge. So these are questions that we ask, we listen to. You know what I'm saying? And from all personal experience, you know what I'm saying? I can say all of them, no. Some of them are really like builders. Jamal Arif is a real builder. I built with him in parliaments. You know what I'm saying? Right? And others really build, but you don't have to take my word for it. Though all I have to do is listen to the lyrics I could quote. Or read their own autobiographies. Like You God's autobiography is filled with notes about the mystery God. Filled. Let alone like the discrepancies in like teaching, trying to explain what we deal with as the moments where he got knowledge himself and he's trying to explain it. And he says things wrong. I didn't even go there. I just go with how does he relate to God? Like how does he speak about God? He talks about it like it's in the sky. That's not me saying that. I didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying you just have to read his own things. You know what I'm saying? Doing the knowledge, doing your own research. You know what I'm saying? This is very important, though. But I know on that level, I am going to go through the short, very useful neurology mini lesson. I have a little mini lesson on neurology, the science of the study of the brain, the study of the relationship of the mind, right? Thought, all of these things. And the physiology of the body and how that relates. So I'm going to go through that. So you get like a little prep, a little intro to some of the books. And I just mentioned like 3 of the books and some ideas to get you started and launched in there. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go through that in a little bit. Because I've been saying this for a while, and I'm finally going to just get up to it. You know what I'm saying? I expected some other younger students to come because they had their parents had DM'd me, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But anyway, we adjust. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you're in a cipher, we always build to the students that know the least.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And then hopefully the students that know what is being taught are being shown how to teach it, and also different ways to learn it. You know what I'm saying? Right? So this whole thing of being an educator is really like being a jazz singer. You know what I'm saying? Right? Different styles, different approaches, and different ways of doing it. You know what I'm saying? Right? But did you have any other questions, Bob? I felt like I.
No.
Okay. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah.
You know. All right. Yeah. So let's see who's here. Peace to the earth. Back with Sweetie. Peace. Let's see. Forexzo. I don't know how to say that. You know. Peace. All right. Crypto Ocho. Seafood. Peace divine. Yeah. You know, I mean, technically from my Seagung Bobby Whitaker, I am a seafood. And that was only there's I remember the day he told me, like, listen, you're ready to teach what you know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I know a lot, but I've always been good at teaching what I know, whatever it is. Knowledge, math, peace. Peace to God powerful, aka Sim, all right? Okay, Lotus, all right? Wisdom, infinite earth, peace to the earth. Peace to the earth. Also known as the MC back with Sweetie. Peace. Okay. Now I'm trying to write some notes in here. All right, just give me a moment though. All right. I'd like everybody to ask some questions so I can collect some questions. And God, when I come back, I'm going to go through that neurology lesson if I don't have lesson questions. But there's a lot of things I want to go over in general. Yeah. I want to make a note. What was I saying in my head right now about you know, it's interesting about teaching. right? And there's always disagreements about teaching. I'll give you an example. I also get, and I have to mention this because I want to use this. I get a lot of stuff for wearing polo. And when I explain it though, like being part of the low lives and stuff, I think people don't understand though how that had nothing to do, that had everything to do with being God, that I end up being a part of the low lives, right? I don't know if you know about the low lives, man. The low lives were basically they were a boosting gang. They were boosting clothes, and it mainly became polo, Ralph Lauren stuff. You know what I'm saying? But they were boosting all type of clothes. And from the founders that I know, they were boosting because they couldn't afford stuff, and they were boosting the clothes to get money for their families and stuff. Obviously, it became a thing where they were boosting these great clothes, also wearing the clothes. It became addictive. They were robbing other people's clothes. So it mutated, right? All crimes mutate into bad things, good things, bad things, all types of things, right? Never clean, right? But over the years, many of those low lives over the decades became very like everything, like all of us. So they became very good at the culture, hip hop, all of those things. And when some of the founders, particularly Thurston Howell III, one of the founders, started to do hip hop later in life, like in his late 20s, which that's late to start doing hip hop. In his like late 90s. He started to really show the culture out there. And then other guys he took up with him started to MC. A lot of people don't know Raplo was an MC, you know what I'm saying? And had records, and now he does all of these fashion events though, but he was doing records and everything. So a lot of guys, right? And it blew up and there was a whole bunch of low lives and it became a whole movement, right? All types of brothers that were low lives, all of them that were in the music, they just started to kind of unite and flood like that, right? I become immersed in it because I'm covering all this music, you know what I'm saying, over the years. And I become very peace with a lot of these guys, you know what I'm saying? And one day, one of the early founders who's a 5%, right? The God Rakim Supreme Shabazz Allah, right? Who also known as Rudy Lowe, right? And so I make a very good relationship with Thurston Howell III, among many of the low lives, and also the God. And the God sees what I'm doing though. And so he realizes I should probably be in this, the low lives, because they're expanding, they're being more than just, they're not a gang, we're a fashion organization, and more so than that, it's a hip hop collective. Basically an organization, a hip hop organization of all these different talents, doing the elements, right? Rap, graffiti, whatever it is, right? Oh, everything, right? DJs, everything. It has everything, right? And so I say, yeah, that's peace. You know what I'm saying? That's peace. You know what I mean? And slowly but surely, I become part of the low lives. You know what I'm saying? When people hear me say Skill Illustrator Low, that's because Thurston Howell named me that. You know what I mean? And it's funny about the history of the gods because the name Skill Illustrator Low is a play on skillionaire, using the word skill for many different ways. Skillionaire, schilosopher, and he was called that skillionaire by another god that was a lowlife called B-Born, who was one of the IBM dancers who danced with Nice and Smooth back in the day. Also was an MC too and very good. And so that name reached out to me and he called me Skill Illustrator, and as an honor, as a term of endearment and honor. So I used it. I used it as a pen name, as an alternate pen name as well, or as a linking pen name along with my name Sunez, my righteous name. You know what I mean? And as a side note, people be on some bullshit. Sunez is not my given name. That's not my birth certificate name. It sounds Latin though. I made it sound like that on purpose because I lived in Sunset Park. That's where I grew up. So I wanted to teach people, and I wanted people to know that Puerto Ricans were also original, and let other brothers that were not Latino know that we're original. You know what I'm saying? That was the statement originally in my head with that name. And it's an acronym. Savior of the universe now shows and proves the equality of Zigzag Zig. Sunez Allah, right? But the reason I'm saying all this background history is that these moves were made to help people. A lot of people follow the low lives. A lot of people are into low Ralph Lauren clothing culture and low heads and things like that. And the low lives are the lead in that. They follow what we do. They follow all these things. You know what I'm saying? So to make them, so if they add me to it, then the point is for me to help them be more positive than they already are, to add on, to be a detail. You know what I mean? The brothers that are in there and the sisters, to give them the knowledge if they're seeking it, to add on with whatever I know that they could use. You know what I'm saying? So through the years, I've taught many people that are actually low lives this knowledge, but also all of those that are following the low lives know that, you know, they're represented with a deeper ideas, you know, and all of these things. You know what I'm saying? So we're supposed to be going everywhere. We're supposed to be going everywhere and adding on and building, you know? So when I get stuff about, oh, he's wearing clothes like this, I'm like, well, what's not imperialist clothes? You know what I'm saying? You know, right? I've had people tell me this while they're wearing Nazi Adidas and Nazi Pumas. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because
right, you know, the founders were, you know, the guy that founded Adidas, the brothers were, they founded Adidas, and there was all Nazis, Nazi money, and one of the brothers snitched on the other, and then left on his own and made Puma. Right, so we probably could have an argument what's worse, Adidas or Puma, right? But they're both, you know, Nazi funded shit. You know what I'm saying? These guys were colluding with the Nazis and snitching and blowing people's spots up. This basic Wikipedia knowledge. It's not even like hard to find. Like Wikipedia will tell you this, and they'd be deleting mad things. You know what I'm saying? But you know, that's the whole thing. Like what I've always said, one of the greatest builds is to learn how to balance contradiction and hypocrisy. You want to stay away from hypocrisy, but understand that you must be steeped in contradiction in this world if you're actually going to engage in it. You know, if we stay out of the fray, if we stay out of everything, we're always going to be outside of things. But we go back in, we're like a bodhisattva. We reach enlightenment, but we go back to the people. So what level will you go back with the people? Right? For the father, it was, you know, I do this. I like to drink and smoke, and I like to play dice. So I do these things with them, and I build with them.
Right.
But for me, that's not what I ever did. I don't drink. I never drink. I never smoke. I don't do these things, and I don't gamble. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I'm now with the people. I do hip hop. You know what I'm saying? I do the low life culture. You know what I'm saying? Right? And nobody has to convince me, right? My wardrobe costs less now than when before I was in low life. A lot of people don't understand that. You know what I'm saying? Because with all these lows, I know how to get this low. And I'm not even talking illegal shit. I'm not wearing anything illegal. You know what I'm saying? If people want to get on that too. You know what I'm saying? Right? I just know how to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I know how to dress. I'm older. You know what I'm saying? Just, right? But especially now where, like, you know, somebody's sports sweatpants are, you know, $200, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is that we're supposed to be engaged with the people. And some of these things are contradictions. And I think that especially if a brother's so-called Latino, they sometimes understand this contradiction more than others. You know? See, Muhammad, when somebody was coming up to you and saying, listen, the gods, they have something to teach you. You know, they teach the black man is God. No one has to tell you in this society of the United States that you're a black man. You know what I'm saying? But for most Latinos, especially, right? Puerto Ricans, whatever you have, right? We're told differently. We're told we have black blood, but we're not black. You see what I'm saying? So we're of the waters, but we're not the water. You know what I'm saying? So we have to actually be told, you know, you're a black man. We have to be taught that. So in the lesson, who's the original man? The original man is an Asiatic black man. You say, okay, I'm the Asiatic black man. You might ask, well, what do you mean by Asiatic? You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to go black man. You understand what that means, right? For many of the Latino brothers, they don't always understand it. And they could be as dark as you too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Dominicans are taught in the educational system that their darker shade is from, the indigenous natives. So they'll say it's Indian. You know what I mean? They'll disavow that. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? A lot of so-called African Americans are doing that today too. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to be linked and say they're from Africa in any kind of way. And they keep saying that they're indigenous, though. But they don't know any indigenous culture. But they like to go, well, those people with the long black hair and those looks, they stole it. You know what I'm saying? And not knowing. And it's funny because people, it's like they have the analytical mind is how we analyze things too, because I heard people say this that have knowledge of self, supposedly. And I've also heard them quote books that I'm like, did you actually read the book? I've heard people quote the great Native American scholar Jack D. Forbes. A lot of times people don't like Jack D. Forbes. He was a Native American. The Native Americans went through like basically finishing schools. You know, they were ripped from their tribes and thrown into these schools. Especially when you go up to Canada, especially, and when you go down here, right? And when they rip them in there, they have to get rid of the names and they have to get a name. Just like when people always make fun of Asians and go, oh, everybody's named Lee. You go out there, the name is not Lee. These are names that they had to basically pionize it. They had to give it a pionization. They had to adapt it to the country. So they just use a few. Why do they have to make up new ones? They just use Lee and they use simple ones. You know what I'm saying? But the indigenous, they forced them to pick names. You know what I'm saying? So they had to get regular anglicized. They had to anglicize their whole life, you know, by force. You know what I mean? So a lot of that 1 to 36, the indigenous lived that out as well. In fact, much of that is also in the history, if we're really putting a full circle in a lot of ways, a lot of that history is also in Puerto Rico. When Puerto Rico was colonized by the United States, they did a lot of the anglicizing as well. You know, where they taught them different food groups. And they taught them about fruits that they didn't even have. I remember my older, when she was alive, she used to tell me that they used to teach her about the food groups, you know, apples, oranges, and she ain't never had apple. You never had apple. They said, no, you know, we have mangoes and, you know, things like that. And they're like, no, we're not going to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? And they have to be forced to learn English. It wasn't like now where, like, if you don't know English, you know, they take you smooth through it. No, if you didn't know English and you were here, you just fail everything. They just fail you. You better learn that shit quick. You know, you have to adapt. You have to learn it though, right? So these are all the things. And when we deal with contradictions, we have to understand that we're forced into the contradictions. It's how we deal with them. That we would know all this knowledge, and then we would say, well, you know what? The society doesn't see me as a black man, or their definition, so then I'm not. You know? No, it ain't that. Most of the society wouldn't understand that I'm a black man, so I say I'm the original man. I'm an indigenous man like any of the other original indigenous men. You find a language that shares the right meaning until you can be exact in the approach. You know what I'm saying? But that's the embracing of the contradiction. The same thing here when we say, listen, we're trying to cause revolution and all these things, and yet I'm walking around with clothing that people are saying is imperialist, though. You know what I'm saying? But these men, you know, and it's funny because people say the same thing, and they're wearing Tommy Hilfiger, and they're wearing Timberlands.
And even if it's not a high value brand, it's still imperialist.
Right, yeah. Even the most low down brand, you know, like people tell me this while they're wearing Champion. I like Champion gear, but it's cheaper. It's more affordable. I'm not gonna say cheaper. It's well made. It's more affordable. I like Champion gear. I got a lot of Champion gear, right? But those people aren't original man either. You know what I'm saying? And then all of the most of the merch that we're buying from people that we got love for, that represent these ideas, the merch is made from, you know, from factories too that are mass producing these things, and then they sell it to you, and you just screen print all of this, the ideas that you have, what you represent, but it's really from that too. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you killed a cow, made that leather. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you plowed the cotton and spooled it and made this. You know, you dyed the clothes and made that. You didn't do all that, and it's fine. We're in any of these societies. Everything is being brought to us. That would be the same as saying, like, listen, I'm not going to eat anything unless I farmed it, though. Do you realize how long of a process you'd have and how much land you need? You know what I'm saying? To have a diverse diet, it just wouldn't work. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be very careful what we're saying, what we're doing. You know. When you live in the city, that's the pitfalls, you know, right? Things are important. You know what I'm saying? Indian reform schools. I knew you would know, God. Yeah. You said they were still in operation as recent as the 50s here in Canada. Yeah. There's what was it? There's a short book called The Indian Act. 20 things to know about the Indian Act. And short book, but it really shows the depth of devilishment that was done in Canada against the indigenous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Canada be portrayed like a real nice, neutral, safe zone and shit.
20 things to know about the.
I'm forgetting the name of the book. Let me look it up real quick. Those 21 things to know about the Indian Act. Of course, we're talking about Canadian law, but it's very illuminating. Let me get the exact name. Yeah, 20 things you may not know about the Indian Act. It's a long title. Helping Canadians Make Reconciliation with Indigenous Peoples a Reality, written by Bob Joseph. And of course, Bob Joseph is an Indigenous man, but you know, like I told you about the name. You know what I'm saying? I have that book as well, though, if anybody wants it, though. You know what I'm saying? Peace do for self. Born. Malik, you said born, the fruition of thought bringing forth a new reality. Indeed. Right? Elevated fulfillment, I like to call born. Sim said they make new era baseball caps in prison. Free labor. You know, I've had somebody get on me about polo and shit like that, and he was dressed in all types of sports gear. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a sports fan. You know, baseball, all of this stuff. And these are some of the most heinous corporations. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're wearing any football tee, I don't want to hear no shit from you. You know, on that level. And like all the sports you like, though, I enjoy it too, man. You know, baseball? Like, come on. Are you kidding me?
Like you said, if we're not going out there plowing ourselves, you know, license plates, a lot of different things.
Right.
So
yeah.
We
you know, like, you know, we're all using and we need it, like the phones, and we're broadcasting here using my laptop, right? But all this stuff is using cobalt and other minerals that are from Africa, and they are destroying those people's livelihood doing this. And people are like, oh, we'll just use batteries for cars and we'll get rid of fuel. But they're actually destroying Africa to get the actual batteries, the components of the battery. I mean,
iPhones,
yeah, all this stuff. Now we know that we need these things. So we're forced to function in this society. You know what I'm saying? You know, I told you I wrote books and everything through using the phone throughout this process. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's really my travel computer. You know, and so this is what we're stuck dealing with. So these are the contradictions, though. And as soon as we could do something better, we try to do better. But this is what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's peace, Malik. It's always important to put it in your words, and your words were just fine on that build.
You know? So earlier you had said something. You said contradiction on hypocrisy, right?
Right. Because we have to learn to embrace contradictions. You know what I'm saying? We have to embrace contradictions. You know what I mean? It's not always the same. You know what I'm saying? It's not always this. We want to veer away from hypocrisy. This is the problem. You know what I mean? Contradictions are fine. You know what I'm saying? Contradictions are fine. You know? Look at the contradiction of martial arts. People that really do martial arts, myself included, this is really about gaining peace within the self and understanding your body, knowledging your body perfectly. These are things Bruce Lee said. People just read like, he kicks ass. He's just fighting people, hurting people, you know? But we do what he said and what I just said. We do that every day. We don't kick ass every day. We're not fighting every day. And the more we learn, it's unacceptable to be fighting. You know what I'm saying? We abhor violence the more that we learn this. So we're learning to be violent when necessary, and we come to abhor it more and more as we go along. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you just reminded me of something. I have this book, and he was a fighter also. And he talked about a lot of things.
You brought the other great martial artist.
He talks about a lot of the things that you said.
I'm just going to grab the book because I love this book. I have this. Mine is old as hell. I have this book also. I could give it out for free. But he just gave me this, and for everyone that knows how much I love Moriya Shiba and the Art of Peace. You know what I'm saying? One of the most beautiful collections, ever written. You know what I'm saying? And this is my favorite translation.
Some deep stuff.
So many jewels in here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is a book I read every year.
Okay.
I read this every year. You know what I'm saying? And I write about different ones whenever I can, and it hits me. You know what I'm saying? It's great stuff. I love this book. You know what I'm saying? I see some pages stored here though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every year I read this book at least once.
Yeah, it's a must-have.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That tells me that one day maybe Muhammad, we might get you out there and start training you. You know what I'm saying? For anyone that learns martial arts with me, though, reading these books is key. You know what I'm saying? There are certain martial arts books that I find that are crucial to the martial artist, and they have nothing to do with fighting. They have to do with the mentality, or the Art of Peace, the Tao Te Ching. You know what I'm saying? Bruce Lee's The Tao of Kung Fu, which is not about fighting.
I didn't even know he had Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee wrote books, yeah. People like the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, but that's more about fighting techniques and things like that. And there's a lot of jewels in there. But I like Tao of Kung Fu.
That's my Bruce Lee, right?
Bruce Lee, yeah. I can give you that too.
Okay, cool.
And all these books, I'll give you a truckload that next email. You just write down the books that you want, and I'll give them to you. You know what I'm saying? But that's a great one too, because people just look at Bruce Lee as like some guy that, he's just kicking ass.
He's incredible, man.
Being confrontational, but that's not the truth. You know what I mean? That's not the truth. A lot of jewels. Do for self, you said born is to bring to bear. Concentrate on something with a specific purpose. Or something that was concentrated on with a specific purpose. All right? Malik UX, were we sold by our own because of the interorientation? Also, did they, the traitor devil, speak a language we didn't understand? If we didn't understand, why agree? Okay. This is the 1 in 36, a conversation in the 120 lessons. The 1 in 36, so is, for me, it would be the second set you get after the 1 to 10. So you get math, alphabet. Did you email me?
No.
Okay,
yeah, you did.
Okay. Mathematics, alphabet, 1 to 10, and then the 1 to 36. Okay? That's the way I teach it. I think the 1 to 36 is simpler than the 1 to 14. And I just like people to get those things under their belt. You know what I'm saying? I feel like when they feel like they're on the road to memorizing, though, and they say, listen, I memorized the 1 to 10 and the 1 to 36, that's 46 degrees. And you're like, yo, I got 46 of them. I'm on my way. Then they get the first juggernaut, 1 to 14 after that. Those 14 questions and answers are longer. And then the 1 to 40 is the big juggernaut of questions and answers. However, in the 1 to 36, it's said to be, the way I was told, was a conversation between Fard and some type of Masonic judge of some sort. And he talks about slavery and how we were, the original man in the wilderness of North America was captured and was fooled. And he's asking me, in the lesson, are they talking about the traitor that it says in the lesson uses a very old word? Some people have incorrectly changed the lesson. You don't have to remember any of this, because when you actually get to the lesson, we'll do all this again, right? But just to make it useful for you. That's what I'm talking about, making it useful, even though you're not up to that, right? It uses a word called interorientation. Now, you've heard the word orientation. Go to college, though, they give you orientation. You're new to college, you don't know what you're doing, right? Interorientation is a word that you don't really find in a dictionary. It's a very old word, doesn't get used. But it's actually an old book. It's an old word used in old sociological texts. It actually literally means the interaction between a group sharing an idea with another group that have two different languages they're speaking. But one group is trying to indoctrinate the other group with that teaching, even though they speak different languages. So they may not know exactly what they're speaking of, but they're still trying to indoctrinate with that language. And that's what we're talking about happening here. Now, I say, to my understanding, I see the 1 to 36 as a conversation, as Fard Muhammad, because he's the one that's talking and answering these questions. I see that Fard Muhammad is referencing as far as us taking each other into slavery, what I'm saying is that he's talking to the opinion leaders and the leaders of the communities. In other words, he's referencing the people that lost knowledge and stuff that were fooled by the trader are not just the average populace of the different tribes in Africa, people that were taking things like that, but the actual people that were running each of these tribes, the small segments of these societies, and they were led astray thinking that this is the way to go. And people like, look, I saw this thing. I didn't finish the movie. You know what I'm saying? I'm actually watching because my brother wants to have my opinion. You know what I'm saying? My brother's an actor. So he watches tons of shit. The way I read books is the way he watches film and TV. So he always, he's my twin brother too. So like, wow. Right? 5 minutes apart. I'm 5 minutes older, so I'm the big bro, But I started watching. I'm terrible at watching stuff. He watches shit in one sitting because he's disciplined like that. Me, nah, man.
Take a while.
Once I finish eating, I get bored. I gotta leave, start reading, do something, right? But I started watching The Woman King, which you wanted me to watch, and a lot of people get on the movie because they're showing black people engaging in slavery, but no white people are around. Now, I don't have a problem though with having a movie with no white folk in it of any conversation. I also don't have a problem so much with a movie that is showing, that is kind of glamorizing some of the tribes, right? That even though they engaged in slavery at the top end, the people at the top to keep surviving, and they kind of glamorize it. Don't show that they were doing something really, really bad too, because I have been watching a lot of film. I told you history. So I've been watching tons and tons of, let's just look at one genre. I've watched tons of classic Westerns of them glamorizing white folk and the way they engage the society. You know what I'm saying? That are actually classic movies. Like, they're well done, they're entertaining, all of that, and it's total bullshit to history. You know what I mean? So this I have no problem with. You know what I'm saying? What I will say is it's not about The Woman King because I didn't finish it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't finish the movie. But when the trader is giving the interorientation, I see that as they weren't just talking to mass populace and convincing them to be part of slavery. That makes no damn sense. But telling opinion leaders and the rulers of each tribe, the opinion leaders, the policymakers, listen, this is what we can have. This is what you can do because this is coming. This is the way of the world. And this is going to change all the industry. So you get it where you fit in because we're already dominating here. We're dominating there. You know what I'm saying? This is not out of line, though. Very important, though, even if you're not on this lesson, with the reality that Chancellor Williams was talking about in Destruction of Black Civilization. Very important thing he said. In the lessons, 120 lessons, it says that we outnumber the devil 11-1. That there are 11 original men to one, to every one white man, right? All over the world, this pretty much is a good ratio. If you really look at it, though, look where all of us are. Right. And you count all the original people here. Then when you go into here, a lot of these parts are mixed. So even if you want to say, listen, some of these in the bottom of Italy, some of these obviously in Spain, Andalusia, right? All of that stuff, Turkey, right? They're not exactly white folk. So even if you don't even want to include them, the ratio is going to be super high, right? So Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization, which is engaging because the subtitle of Destruction of Black Civilization is, if I remember correctly, is 4,400 BCE, before Common Era. Take it out the religious thing, they write BCE, to 2000 Common Era. That's 6,400 years. And we teach that the devil has a rule of 6,000 years, and it took 600 years to make. So ours is 6,600 years. His book subtitle covers 6,400 years. That's eerie. That's some weird shit. We talked about math before, right? How numerology and how numbers fit. But this is different, though. This is real research, right? But what Chancellor Williams said is that when the whites, and he also it not completely details it, but shows that the whites had to accumulate to come back down. And that fits the story where we say the devil caused trouble and was immediately exiled and had to come back. And that's when we say that Musa went to teach them how to actually engage the society. In other words, they had to show that they could engage and be part of society to embed themselves instead of just causing mass trouble, right? And with this said, they come down, right? And they can't do anything. According to Chancellor Williams, they can't really dominate with the numbers so low. So they have to actually engage other people there, meaning other original people, and say, listen, we are making something here. And with our blood mixed together, we can be something totally different. And a lot of the whites, though, are a mixture that came to rule everywhere, had to mix in with these to start dominating. And that's where you get the separation of Northern Africa. You see what I'm saying? A lot of these people see themselves as black, but the ruling classes do not. Because they knew that they mixed in with the devil, and they said we could be something new. You know what I'm saying? And like a strong fist, this is the way he describes it, like a strong fist, the institutions dissipated of black folk, and they lost each other, and they had to migrate, and they had to leave and resettle, and they disintegrate. A society is made up by institutions, education, military, right? Defense, education, care for the children, agriculture. These things dissipate, you start getting things becoming more precedent to describe the gaps, like religion. Religion is a great gap describer, great gap filler. You know what I'm saying? You fill gaps with religion. You know what I mean? Right? It's the great marker. You know, hey, what happened with this? I mean, that's for God to decide. We don't know, right? You don't have to answer every question. But who knows? Only God knows,
That's a feeling I say.
Right? I can't explain why life is so bad. Only God knows. Only God can judge me. We just do Tupac. But answering like Tupac has been the history of religion. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because it's the great shutoff. Remember I said the creator asks the question, what if? What if we do this? What if that? What if? But religion cuts off that question. You don't have to ask because it's not within your purview to be asking if we could change anything and that there any what if. You do all you can, which is all we expect of you. Now we've told you what we expect of you. You do only what we expect of you, and you don't ask any other questions because you've hit the glass ceiling. I always say, I don't see racism as the glass ceiling. You know when I say that in the workplace? Because that is a door and it's very visible. I've worked office jobs in many companies though, and that racism I've dealt with though is a very, very concrete door. I see it very vividly. I didn't bump into anything. I saw it right there. You know what I mean? I don't know what to talk about glass ceiling though. I knew I was going to get bumped. I'm walking into a wall. It's a glass door. It's a concrete door. The glass ceiling is religion. You don't see it. You stop. The mystery is somewhere there, but you don't know where. You stop. Right? But these are the tools and the engagement that led to the multiplying of the populace, the mixture of the populace, and then down. Look at the first great white civilization, the society that there were certain distinct intellectuals that did learn from the Egyptian mystery school systems, right? Like Socrates, who did learn honorably. Peace, God.
Peace.
Right? That did learn honorably, right? These end up being like a mixed population, right? Peace, God. Because the only way that they could get these numbers up was by mixing with what? The original. But you change the mindset. And that's why we say the word half original. Nobody's half original. If you see, there's brothers that there's brothers like, they'll be half black, half white, and they say, look, I'm a true living God. He's all original. Half original is a marker when we're describing people's genetics. But if you say it individually to a person, it's of great offense because it means that they're half original mentally, that they're half devil mentally. You see? So we don't say that. We don't be like, oh, he's half original, shit like that. We don't say that. You know what I'm saying? We never see that. And no elder ever taught me that. They taught me what I just said right now. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of students, man. There's a lot of students that come in. They don't have two black parents. They don't have two brown parents. They have black mom, or they have a white pop, or vice versa. You know what I'm saying? And they're confused. They don't really know how to see that, right? They have two parents, so maybe a lot of times it's even more difficult to see if they're both parents showing lots of love. You know what I'm saying? You try to go back and tell your white mom or white pop that you're the devil. You know what I'm saying? That's some crazy shit. That's some crazy shit. That's not an experience I have though. You know what I'm saying? Right? But so you have to show them what half original means, all of that. But I'm saying all this though because physically that's the population they're trying to make. Whitewashed, but definitely changing the bloodline. That's how they amass the population big enough to take over. You see? And that's why the strongholds are here. That's why the strongholds are here. The mixture of civilization, the intelligence of what they're getting here. You know what I'm saying? When the Moors go up and they take over Spain and they take over the bottoms of Italy, right? Sicily, right here. Right here, it's right there. That's a chunk right there. You know what I'm saying? That's why even today, I've been seeing that more and more. People, it's funny, TV, they like to write realism though, but they like to write one part. So I see programs more, and they'll go, and I'll be with Crown all the time. So he put it's in my head, and I'll hear the Italians and the programs. Is it the way he's from? The way he's from. You know what I'm saying? And it's really like that everywhere. You know what I'm saying? It's really like that everywhere. I never lived in Puerto Rico, and when I hear Puerto Ricans talking, and to me it's all the same, right? I'm proud of the places where my parents are from, but all of it is all peace for me, like all the main provinces and shit like that. But I'll be hearing them say, "Nah, he's from this place," and I don't really, you know what I mean? It's like any ghetto, they got beef with different provinces and that kind of shit. You know what I mean? It's all the same everywhere. You know what I mean? But here's the thing, back to the 1 in 36, right? And these many riffs that I'm going on today, right? And these side tangents. In the 1 in 36, the traitor, right? The traitor, to me, I was saying, is speaking to the leaders of different tribes, people that have the power to say, listen, if we make this, that interior orientation is that pitch to them, saying this is the way it's going. We're coming here and we're trading for goods and we're going to invade. And people say like people that don't really understand, that want to be pro-Africa, they want everything to be glossed over or things like that. They don't understand that this is not an offensive thing. It's really the truth. Original people decided to keep their legacy going by engaging in slavery. And I think that we get more, if you want to look at it from distance, the same thing happened with the many tribes in the United States of indigenous people. These tribes tried to fight for their own freedoms, and they had to make alliances with the countless different traders that were coming in. The English, the French, you know what I'm saying? The Spaniards that were coming in. And sometimes you had places where these indigenous tribes were going against these indigenous tribes. And then they sided with these whites to go against that tribe, because then that way they wouldn't be taken over. So it's a whole bunch of layered stuff. Sometimes indigenous tribes made links with white people to get over other white tribes. You know what I'm saying? White colonizers. It all depended on who they thought was the biggest offender. And here's the problem, though. It's real life. It's happening. And a lot of times, though, these indigenous, our ancestors, they didn't make the right decisions. They chose. A lot of times when you read through the histories, like the deeper histories, like Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee and all these big books, you're like, during the warfare, they did not make the right decisions. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, I don't know if I would have made the right choice.
I mean, wouldn't it be a language barrier on one end, and then some of these traders and colonizers coming over here making
the things
promises,
right.
Saying,
but when
you could come over.
The thing about it though is that when it gets more complex, we're talking about hundreds of years. So after a couple of 100 years, now you need to contact those tribes deeper into Africa if you're going to get in there. You can't just thieve from the coastline.
because you done already.
If you want to get in there, you're not gonna just go in there. That shit is scary, right? It's like we could do on the outskirts of Brooklyn,
Right.
but if we're gonna go deep in there,
You're not gonna go to Brownsville.
you can't go all the way. Yeah, that's too far. We need to get some people to help us go in there. We can just go into Brownsville and be like, "Yo, you're coming with us and shit. We need some help with this shit." You know what I'm saying? So how can you get in there? They're not going in there. So they said, "Listen, now these people, they're like, how are we gonna save ourselves from worse destruction? Maybe if we could branch off and get some here, it might stave off from us getting destroyed." And so remember, how is it that all of West Africa was being destroyed here? How could they get in there? I tell you though, it's all manipulation. It's all in the use of the tools. It's also, by the way, in the use of the tool that is different. The use of the tool is different. This is why when I go through the short neurology lesson, I'm going to show you throughout history, we have created things. I mean humanity now. Humanity has created things that the ruling class, mainly white, have always used as a weapon, and completely not the way it was supposed to be intended to be used. You know what I'm saying? And use it totally different. And that's why now when we look at things, we have to foreshadow this and say, listen, that's not a good idea. I don't think that's going to be a good idea. Like, look, I always have to use it. The biggest example now is vaccine. The guy who made that up wasn't thinking like, yo, if we pump these people with stuff, we could go kill them and just get rid of all these people. No, he was thinking like, if you get like a small portion of the disease and you pump it into them, they might build an immunity faster than being exposed to it, and they're not ready, right? The science is not foolproof like this. Most of the vaccines that were made did not cure all of these diseases. It was basic sanitation, cleaning themselves. White folk didn't clean themselves. It's only until the 20th century that they start bathing regularly. Well, we know, right? We've been out there.
Yeah, but see.
And this century, they still got some work to do this century, right? And you know what I'm saying? Like, they still got some work to do this century, you know? Right? You know? There's a great book called Dirt by Terrence McLaughlin. Goes through the history of dirt, and it's called The History and Abuses of Dirt. And it's basically how white people don't bathe. There's a whole history about that, and how they don't have they refuse to really work on it in their cities. How London didn't have any sewage systems, you know. And mind you, we're talking about like societies that don't have stuff like cleaning, early water classes, which the Moors created. The early water classes, like the early baths, and Europe didn't have a lot of these things because they chose not to have it. It wasn't like the Moors weren't selling it to them; they were selling it to them, and they didn't want to have it. So it's a lot of peace.
It's funny you brought that up because I got a friend. He was telling me about in France, like what the French are known for, like their perfume. He was also saying that they use the reason they heavily use perfumes is they don't shower like the way we shower up here.
No, yes, the things that they bought from the Moors were the perfumes that was coming from the Moors, and basically when the Europeans, like when the Spaniards came to the islands, they were offended by the amount of times that the indigenous were bathing. They were bathed regularly. You know what I'm saying? And all they did was never bathe, and they threw oils on top of themselves. You know what I'm saying? So can you imagine like let's get some musk. Let's get some oils in the corner here and just find the first bum in the corner and just throw the shit on him. You know what I'm saying? And mind you, the European, these are fun facts. The European wore clothes until they broke off. Now think about a sock in your hamper that was on the bottom and it gets hard, and you're like, damn, I don't even want this sock no more, right? They were taking off the clothes when they broke off. Just think about that for a minute.
It's stuck to your skin,
right? It's stuck to their skin that destroy their pores.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is what they were dealing with. This is disgusting. They did not bathe. You know what I'm saying? They did not have sewage system. They threw their fecal matter outside of the window. They threw it out. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Right? When you see those old period pieces and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? And they're throwing something out. That ain't water. That's a urine overnight. They're just throwing out the window. You know what I'm saying? Filthy. You know what I'm saying? Then you wonder why these areas had the Black Plague and had diseases that were killing thousands of people. This is why. You know what I mean? So I said all that though to go back to that point again. The trader that is in the 1 to 36, when we get up to it, right? You're not up to it yet or anything like that. That is referring to them talking to the original peoples in these different tribes in Africa and letting them know that this is the way that's going to preserve your tribe, you know, and there's benefit for you. You know what I'm saying? Fooling some of them, saying, listen, if they go on this trip, it's going to be a good trip. It's going to take some of them. You think that they haven't done this still? That's the whole reason why migration keeps happening. There's a Dominican scholar, I forget his name, and he says most of the immigration from Mexico, the islands like Puerto Rico, DR, right? That's immigration collateral, he calls it. Basically, you know, collaterals in war, though. Those that get destroyed in war. You know? They take over the industries, so thousands of jobs become hundreds of jobs. More and more original people flood the cities. This is how it works all throughout Latin America. They flood the cities. They overload the cities. The only way that their own businesses can continue to function without upheaval and overthrowing, you gotta let some of them migrate. That's how Puerto Rico, that's how they came to migrate. And they were given citizenship. That's how much they were destroying the colony. You know what I'm saying? Destroying Puerto Rico. That in 1917, they gave citizenship to anyone that was Puerto Rican or on the island or anyone that was Puerto Rican that migrated into the United States. But that's how they started coming here. Just overflowing. But that's immigration collateral. It's not, you don't want them, but what you're blood sucking isn't going to work, isn't going to function properly. You know what I'm saying? So these things like these ideas of original people working with the devil and things like that, it's not all, if you look at things and look at history like all evil, they did the wrong thing. We're not babies.
Right.
We're not babies. These are all interacting tribes that even if they didn't have beef with each other, they're being told to cutthroat each other. And they're being put in positions that they can't handle anymore. A lot of these situations where you see the indigenous tribes in the Americas, where they were linking up with whites and fighting these others and all that kind of stuff, right? We're talking about over 200 years after the Americans have already started wars and colonizing them. We're talking about the 1700s, the 1800s. The movie, The Woman King, right? I was talking about The Woman King. The Woman King, if I remember correctly, takes place in like the 1700s. How long has slavery been going on already? It's been going on for centuries already. A few centuries. You know what I mean? So when certain tribes feel like the only way that they could survive, though, is by taking their enemies and selling them into slavery, right? This is not uncommon anymore. These tribes don't see any other way. And how could they guarantee that other tribes would say, okay, let's not do this, let's unite against the white man, because they don't really know the power that the white man has already. You know what I'm saying? Let's not also forget, though, that by that time, 1700s, 1800s, parts of Africa are not just they're not just destroyed by slavery, they're already being colonized for their materials and resources. You see? This was the big deal that made England take over Spain as the dominant force in the slave trade. It was because they knew how to use the wealth. They used the wealth and used it to collect minerals, resources, develop capital. That's all capital is. We talk about capitalism. It's not money. It's the capital that you have. What capital do you have? What resources? What wealth do you have? How much wealth do they have as they took over? You know what I'm saying? And they're not just doing that here. They're doing it here too. You know what I'm saying? They're taking over all of this stuff. The massive amount of resources that they're blood-sucking throughout. So it's a colonization of the entire original people, of all the world where the original people are at, and where all their resources are. You know what I'm saying? People be talking about the richness of Africa. Look at the richness of South America. You know what I mean? The biggest rainforest here. As of this day, today, they're destroying this right now. They're destroying this. You know what I mean? We go to the health food store, right? My ass is eating like bags of quinoa and shit like that. These are indigenous food. They got no business being in New York City.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We get a little package though. The package says fair trade. I'm like, okay, it's fair trade. Is it? What's really fair trade? Right? What would be the standard though? All of these indigenous foods, maca root powder. You know what I'm saying? Right? We're taking all this maca root though because it's good for the self-equal unknown. That's what they say it's for, right? That's where it's from. It's from the indigenous. The acai berry, right?
Yeah.
White folk out there, they go to the juice, Jamba Juice. Give me an acai berry. You know what I'm saying? Acai berry, that's their powerful juice. Berries. Right? Yeah.
That's my shit.
Right?
Got me feeling bad right now.
No, but I'm saying though, we got to use all these good things, right? We hope that, right? The yerba mate. You know what I'm saying? Some of the companies, they show how they deal with the indigenous there, but no matter what though, to get it over here for us, I'm not buying. Like, I need a whole bunch. So, you know what I'm saying? I need a giant bag of yerba mate. You know what I'm saying? I need the bags of quinoa. I need all this shit, right? This is mass production. Where did we ever find that mass production though benefited societies? You know what I'm saying? Very rarely. Especially populaces that are local, that do local farming though. So their farming doesn't destroy the land as like mass farming. You know what I'm saying? Right? Rotate crops though. You know what I'm saying? Have many different types of seed. That doesn't always work when you sell it, right? We only got 3 flavors here. You only need 3 flavors. We don't need like 50 seeds. Out there, they got 50 seeds for like, they'll have 50 seeds of eggplant in India. You know what I mean? The indigenous have multiple types of seeds though for high altitudes, low altitudes, floods, droughts, all of these things, right? No, we don't need that. We mass produce them. We just need that white rice. You don't need red. You don't need black. You don't need the other colors. You don't need all these different good waters that produce different colors of rice. And you just get that white bleach rice. We're gonna mass produce it, but there's so much so. The best way is to bleach it though. That's how much, like in the islands, right? That's how much sugar cane they take from us. That they actually can't give it to us that way. They have to do something to it because it's too much. They gotta bleach it though. Because if they don't bleach it though, it's gonna get spoiled and rotten. So you get a bleach product though, right? All that sugar you Domino. Domino is a devil though. You ever do out there in Puerto Rico doing devilishment. First official governors, I forgot his name though, that started Domino. He was one of the governors of Puerto Rico, the first one that they appointed though, right? And he didn't give a shit about doing anything there. He was there only long enough to establish Domino Sugar. And when he established that, he was like, I'm out. I'm done. That's the legacy. You know what I'm saying? That's the legacy. So when we look at like all these wars, the Indian wars, right? When we look at the slave trade and how it affected the African tribes, you can't read history and say these people are evil, these people are that. You know what I'm saying? These people are not that. It's the same as if you look like we go through the hood and we say, listen, somebody from another hood came in and they started shooting and they got shot back. And you're like, now you shot another black man. But that black man came in here and was shooting. He was on the wrong block. And he got shot. It's more, woe is this reality, this macro reality. But in the micro, it's like, damn, this is like real life. This is just the way it's going down. You know what I'm saying? This is the way it's happening. And if you read history with this group, understanding this gray reality, it is not so clean cut, then you understand it more. You know what I'm saying? You understand it more. It's probably one of the big problems that we have now with the way people with cancel culture and all this kind of stuff, and they want to gloss over things or just forget about things. This is more the reality. You know, so when you look back in history, read it for the reality that is happening and not necessarily like, oh, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that. Don't agree or disagree with anything in that level, because all of it though is a situation. What's better to say is the original man is the what? Knowledge, the king, right? So to be the king, you have to knowledge the knowledge to born the wisdom. You have to know yourself and you have to know the people to born the wisdom that is the right way. You know what I'm saying? And for that, though, you have to know all of the gray area. No king will make a policy that affects everyone perfectly. You know what I'm saying? Every king's choice, the larger the masses of people he deals with, will have something that leaves someone out. Right? I always give the example. Fidel, he took over Cuba, he kicked out everything. You ever seen the videos? You seen the videos where they're bulldozing and they're breaking up Chase Bank? It's just sweet, right? He's just smashing Chase. I love it. It's beautiful though. He's destroying all this bullshit, redistributing the wealth. All of the. And mind you, Cuba, out of all the islands though, English and Spanish speaking, was one of the most racist places when Fidel took over from Batista, who was the dictator. So much so that in the 1920s, this is way before, right? In the 1920s, Cuban musicians that came to New York to play from Cuba said that they'd rather stay in New York because it was less racist than Cuba. You're telling me that you'd rather stay in America? Because America's racist last I checked, 1920s, right? They'd rather stay in 1920s. Now, 1920s, let's just give you an example. 1920s New York City, right? We both could be Puerto Rican though, right? I shave off this, don't look so, indigenous, right? Make sure I don't get sun. I'm gonna be playing in the nice hotels. But you're my brother, right? You can't do nothing with that. Look at your hair, you can't do nothing with that. You're gonna be playing uptown. You'll be doing jam sessions in the jazz clubs uptown. Me, I'm gonna be making that money in a hotel, playing some bullshit music. And there's a lot of stories of the musicians. They're like, listen, I was light and I had to play this money, but it was boring. It wasn't fulfilling. And the other guy's going, you know what? I couldn't play any of the good gigs that got me money, but man, we played some music though. Right. We got to be free and do what we wanted to do, not the sanitized stuff in the lobby of a hotel. You know what I mean? All different situations, but they'd be brother and sister. But one was light, one was, you know what I'm saying? So all these things are the reality of New York City, 1920s New York City. And yet that was better than Cuba. This is the Cuba that Fidel took over. Just to put it in perspective. You know what I mean? And yet when he took over, he said, he redistributed and he said, listen, you got this farm, you got to give some of it up and you got to give it to him. But then that guy's like, man, that shit. Would that be fair? It doesn't feel fair to you though. But if you had this farm and you were like, listen, you gotta give some of that shit up. Listen, these motherfuckers wasn't doing shit with me. Why do I have to give up something? I built this. It's not like they were going through the ledger and saying, you did this unrighteously, you did this to the darker peoples here, this and that. No, they said, listen, you got this much, yeah, it's a little over. You gotta give some of that away. And that's why a lot of the Cubans were leaving, and they made it into Miami. The people that run Miami, though, were the people with the biggest amount of wealth. You know what I'm saying? And the ties run deep. How deep? Give you an example. Gloria Estefan. She was related to the closest bodyguards of Batista. Look at that, see that, right? Right? And now she's singing Conga Line and shit, selling out. You know what I'm saying? And giving us the Miami sound, the place where Latin music dies, though, right?
So that's why you got those Cubans that still got.
Most of those Cubans are white Cubans, because over there they dealt with segregation heavy. Those are white Cubans. They could give a damn about Black Cuba culture and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's why, like, they have the misnomer. Like, we go like this way. Somebody goes like this, right? To me, and they go, listen, I like Black Cuban music. I like Afro Cuban music. And I was going, that's kind of redundant. Mm-hmm. There's no white Cuban music. They didn't make shit. Somebody goes to me, look, I love salsa, right? Bomba plena, and they go, that's Afro Puerto Rican music. Nah, it's Puerto Rican music. We're Afro indigenous. That's the music we make. There's no Euro music in it. There's no Euro music in the island. You know what I'm saying? But because they were so segregated in Cuba, we really did have those demarcations like that. You know what I'm saying? These are important to know because it sounds so dope what Fidel did, but then there's still people that worked hard, right? And they still lose some of their shit. They're like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I worked hard to get that shit. Right? No one that is ruling, that is leading a people, can have all the people happy. Especially the larger and larger the masses get. It's nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible. You know what I'm saying? And so when we look at our history, especially once we look at the history after enter white man, right? Enter white man. Nothing is as clear as it seems. You know what I'm saying? And then when we go the history before whites were here, always look at it like saying, I have no idea what this life would be like. You know what I'm saying? So I have to take it upon myself to say, listen, their perspectives must be different. And so I don't want to give it my own perspectives about what it would be. Right? So we don't want to make it too glossy. Right? We don't want to glamorize it too much in our minds. You know what I'm saying? We want to look at it with a reality. Well, what are their differences? It's got to be different. It's got to be different than what we understand. So when we're going through history, we have to have these different lenses that look at things a little bit not a little bit, but very objectively. I think, to me, in the jungle way of life, right? Give me a moment. In the jungle way of life, in the jungle way of life, we say most of Africa is not jungle. The guy was throwing that question out there. Here's the thing about that, the way I see it, right? The lessons are written to engage the African American here, the Black American in the United States. You know what I mean? And it actually engages a lot of the cliches and a lot of the stereotypes that have been thrust on the Black American here. You know what I'm saying? Especially in that God degree in the 1 to 14, because saying there would, you know, when he looks at them saying that they live a jungle way of life, right? It's exposing that idea that, oh wait, we're taught that we're all jungles, we're all like that, and we're not like that. You know what I'm saying? Elijah, and if you read Elijah's books, which are mainly his speeches, they're not really written. It's not like he sat down and wrote them. These are speeches. Elijah Muhammad was always pointing out this idea of eradicating the cliches of stereotypes that are thrust on us about Africa. So Elijah's role, as far as like what original people, he really wasn't concerned with. He was not concerned with giving you a realistic picture of today's Africa or the Africa of the last century. If you ever notice that, he don't really give a shit, actually. But he's really what he really focuses on, like, listen, the cliches of what they tell us is not us. You know what I'm saying? And listen, every single thing, by every single piece of art, everything depicted Africa as, you know, savages wilding out, you know, living a beast life. You know what I'm saying? And then what do you see? You see that language in the lessons. To me, the language in the lesson is very current to that time of the stereotypes and the hatred against the Black man, especially the cliches that were thrust on them. You know, it's safe to say even that these cliches of what people say Africa was are stuff that the African living in Africa dealt with less than the African outside of Africa. You know what I'm saying? It was used more to destroy the African outside of Africa, right? Everybody in the islands, though, growing up, we're so, you know, the Africans, they're savage, though. That's not your culture. You don't do savage to like them in Africa, right? All the cartoons, TV, everything here. What did they say? It said the same things all over, right? So the lesson to me is written engaging those ideas. Elijah's goal was to get these Black Americans here to see this knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And to disassociate from those. And I also think that if we want to really get argumentative and say there's not really good history of Fard and he doesn't really exist like that, what does Fard look like? The Fard that they show us.
The white man.
He looks like the white man. You know what I'm saying? He's as white as you can get.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Straight hair.
Right?
Yeah.
Now we know that there's original people that are that light.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
We're straight hair.
But at the same time, that's the one that is the savior. That's the one that
Yeah, right.
it fits the mold of what I've always said is my understanding. I've always said that Elijah was basically here to replace Christianity with a different version. In other words, let me give you your own, and it'll have the window dressing. It'll have the garments of Christianity. A very light savior. So you don't get so offended. Because remember, you got to understand, right? Think about our history of our families, right? How dark skin is so fucking offensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When I was a kid, and we say, listen, when I was a kid, though, you know the toy they wouldn't buy me? G.I. Joe. Or is it G.I. Joe's? They wouldn't get me Roadblock. Roadblock was the dopest one. He had the biggest fucking gun. He was muscular. He was diesel. Why you want the dark one? Why you get this one? You know what I'm saying? Why you don't want this one? Now, when I got my toys, though, right? All my G.I. Joes were Puerto Rican. They was all Puerto Rican in my head and shit like that. None of them was white. You know? And I was like, nah, he light skinned like my cousin here. This was like this one. You know what I'm saying? But they wouldn't get me the Roadblock. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, damn, that was like a dope. He was the dopest one. You know what I'm saying? He had a big fucking joint. He had, you know what I mean? Yeah, he was the best one. Unless you came with like a vehicle. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys that came with the vehicles and shit. But he was, right? He was fire though. You know what I'm saying? But this idea is stressed. You think, let's think about it, the black man at that time, the way we was taught, indoctrinated for centuries with Christianity, you think that you would come along and tell them the truth about something and say, the Savior that brought this here, looks like sand right here. Look like that. And we dress him to the nines though. He looks impeccable. You know what I'm saying? Clean, sharp, handsome, boom, right? The guy right there. And be like, nah, I'm not fucking that nigga. That nigga. You know, that's crazy. Niggas ain't gonna come in and build it like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna do it. You know? Then you gotta look at the power. Look at the power. Look how it affects the even the most deepest of scholars. Dubois nobody was near him with the word. You know what I'm saying? W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Nobody was near him with the word. The shit that he wrote with Souls of Black Folk was so detailed of the mindset. It was mind-blowing. And by the way, contrary to what they tell you, it's the work of W.E.B. Du Bois that starts actual sociology. The whole thing. The whole thing. They like to give it to the Europeans. I forget which one. It's my own brain, forgetting about it on purpose. But Du Bois' work was written before that. Because Souls of Black Folk is not his first work. He had seminal works before that. But Souls of Black Folk is that juggernaut book. You know what I'm saying? But even then, when he saw that black ass, right? Marcus Garvey, who was all regaled out, he was dipped, right? He was, he had the feathers, he was doing everything, and he was like, yo, we're black and we're doing our shit. He's walking through, flamboyant. Whereas Du Bois is trying to be intellectual, show that, look, we're on your level, we're intellectual, we're conservative. You know what I'm saying? We're deep. We're not like that. You know what I'm saying? We're not wild. You know what I'm saying? Right? We don't over-sexualize ourselves. Because remember, don't be thinking that back then, there wasn't over-sexualized.
Yeah.
Right? People go, hip-hop came from hip-hop, just the sounds and shit. The word jazz means fuck. That's what jazz meant. Rock and roll, fuck. All these words were curses, right? You want to rock and roll?
It makes sense. It makes sense as you say it.
Get this jazz on?
Word.
Jazz, man. Yeah, jazz.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That's
Come on. They have always over-sexualized the original man, the original woman. Come on.
That's a fact.
Come on. The original woman is the almost over-sexualized being in the universe.
Or then we over-sexualize ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It becomes
Yeah,
a self-perpetuating
It's
cycle.
choice.
Yeah, that's what we say.
It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
You think
You
it's
know what I'm saying?
regular?
Listen, some of Duke Ellington's greatest performances, though, they're introducing him, and he's coming in. He goes, "Love world famous jungle music," and he's coming in like this. Oh, have you ever seen Go Online? See that shit? Jungle music, and he's coming in like this, always suit and everything and shit. And you're like, oh man, I can't believe that. You know, that's why a lot of times we get older, we're more militant. The next generation, we're like, man, fuck Duke Ellington, fuck all this Louis Armstrong silent and shit and all that kind of. You could smile through the whole song, but if you watch the hardships that they really went through, right? I used to always have a problem with that because that's a thing, especially in the Caribbean, right? Calypso, salsa song, they smile through everything, and it is fucking annoying to me. You know what I'm saying? And then you get Miles Davis though, and he's like, man, I just fuck that shit. I'm playing like this. Play like that.
Yeah.
You realize how Ralph Ellison, who wrote Invisible Man, right? He's not known for this, but he knew music very well. And he wrote, there was a book of essays of music. It's not available digitally. I look for it all the time, right? And he wrote about the music he loved. He knew a lot about 1920s, 30s, 40s, but he wrote like about Miles Davis though. Like Miles Davis was fucking Wu-Tang. You know, he wrote about Miles like he was Wu-Tang, like how dare he come out like that? And, you know, not even give like a recognition of the audience and shit. You know what they mean by recognition, you know, smile. You know? All of that shit. But when you go deep down into it, remember I was talking to you last week about Booker T. Washington? Right. And that Booker T. Washington's his speeches, all the Booker T. Washington speeches were like, oh, well, we're just trying to get along here. We're going to do some good things for ourselves. Not too much, you know. They're all Yassabossing, you know, and people are like, hey, he's some sellout shit. But then on the side, he in the middle of Klan territory, he's teaching them how to be self-sufficient where they don't even need the white man. He's teaching them how to even make bricks. He was teaching them how to make bricks, like make their own home. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But you go out there, you get some funding. You know, you know, we're doing things. You don't know too much, so they're not that smart. And then he was working on that. He said, we don't teach like what Du Bois teaches. You know, we're not here to learn French. We're here to learn things that people need. And then the white man, because he has ego, he goes, yeah, them niggas, they just need to learn about, you know, picking kind of simple shit. You know, don't give them math and shit like that. Just simple shit to learn how to do basic stuff. But that's not what he meant by basic shit. You know, he wasn't teaching them French because he knows there's nobody here to speak that shit to. That's what he meant. He meant teaching you about things that are important. He didn't mean about not teaching you shit that was deep. He meant he was teaching you shit that you're going to use right now. But it was all under the radar. And I was telling you last week, that's who Marcus Garvey came to see. But he had died as he got here. He never got to meet Booker T. You know what I'm saying? But all these ways, all these spiritualities and ideas, they build up upon each other, and there's a way to engage. You see how Elijah Muhammad has a lot of what Marcus Garvey was doing. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not as flashy looking, but it's the regal look. The look of dignity. Nation of Islam, boom, they're all regal. They're all a whole pack of brothers. You know what I'm saying? They could be united though, like a whole colony, like they're a bee colony. You know what I'm saying? They're a colony of bees. They be working. You know what I mean? These are things that we didn't see. That's what Marcus Garvey was doing in a parade. All these brothers could just come along strong, powerful. All is one. Can't stop it though. You know what I mean? But they had disagreements with each other, right? What happened when Du Bois had disagreements with, and he couldn't get back at Marcus Garvey, you read Marcus Garvey's writing, there's no way that Du Bois really worried about him being outwritten. You know what I'm saying? But what did he call him? Made fun of his nose. You know what I'm saying? He called him, I forgot what he called him though, but he said he went physical. You know what I'm saying? He went physical. So even he stooped down low because that's all he had.
This is Du Bois.
Yeah. The great Du Bois, you know? Du Bois, by the way, at the end of his life, not to make him look bad the whole way, and at the end of his life, he was writing a history of Africa. And he renounced his U.S. citizenship and died in Africa. You know what I mean? It goes to show you what people go through. You know what I'm saying? They learn things. They go through things. It's like saying that the father was a Muslim, though, when he didn't. That's not what he became. And for most of his life, though, he was not known as Allah. If you look at it that way, right? He's not known as that. But that's who he is. Right? Who you became, who you born. What you born yourself to be, right? Today's degree. Right? Powerful. Powerful. You know? But we have to go back into history and not take it clear cut. Not take it clear cut. I had this person, they keep going at me on Twitter, and they keep telling me, listen, the NOI was teaching that the black man is God and shit like that. It's one thing to teach it though, but who was doing it? It's one thing to say it though, but who born it? Who said we are that? You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of things, man. A lot of people tell you they rap, right? How many people get you the record though? Because the guy is a DJ though. You gotta get him the record. He can't DJ you telling him he raps. You know what I'm saying? he can't, you know, rhyme a couple of bars in your ear and be like, yo, that's hot, right? Yeah. I'm gonna tell everybody all about it. Nah, man. You gotta make it. You gotta actualize whatever it is you're doing. It's now just actualize. People still don't get that point. But I'm not mad about that. That's the whole point. That very few get it. Very few people reach born with the ideas that they make. They'll have the great idea. They'll see how it's used. They'll have an understanding about it that could be lived out as culture, and they'll see the power in it, though, and they'll bring it to a place where they see the position it could bring them to. But they won't be it. They won't build with it, and they certain as hell won't born it. They don't get there. And that's the fucking difference. You know what I mean? But to me, the Nation of Islam, their point was to show the possibilities. Show the possibilities. Have everybody follow this, though, and we follow it to a possibility. The whole pedagogical framework of this nation is different. We teach the individual. You know what I'm saying? Teach it one-on-one. In other words, the knowledge of self that you get is going to have a preserved truth that all of us get. But yet it's going to be unique to you. Because only you have it, though. And you're the only one that gets it as you got it. Because you're you. You know what I'm saying? Because you're you. You know what I mean? All of this shit is important. If anybody has any questions while I go along, though, I start riffing here. They get the chat quiet and shit. It gets quiet. You know what I mean? But let me open up that file. And let's see. I do have it open, right? Yeah. Peace, God. Let me go through this brief neurology lesson and some of these books and materials here. Obviously, everybody here, the materials, the links and stuff that I'm going to throw in here, I could definitely email it to you. Anybody that doesn't get the links on the chat, even though I put the chat and I leave the chat in, so when you watch it, you can have the chat. But if you just want to get this email and stuff, I could send you the notes and everything. But neurology is important, though. I'm proving that the original man is God is important in going through all of the subjects that are powerful, right? So we have to go through, for example, quantum mechanics, though, and the science of the very subatomic, the small, right? Because we get to the point where something is not even a particle. It's a wave. It's not even a wave of energy, right? What they call wavicles. It's not a wave. It's not a particle. And so we get to such a small level in quantum mechanics, though, where things change because things are not decided. And that's why they say the observer affects the observation. You know what I'm saying? The observer affects the observation. I don't know if I built on a slit experiment. It's so easy to build with a slit experiment, right? But you have a blackboard, right? You have a blackboard there, and they cover it up, right? And they leave one slit. So the whole blackboard is covered, and there's only one slit, one long rectangular slit, and they throw all these subatomic pellets at the board. So you would think that the board is only going to have that part that was exposed, right? The size of the slit. And that's what you get, right? Makes sense, right? Boom, 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 down the line, right? Nothing impressive here, right? It makes sense, Mohammed?
Yeah.
Right? The pellets are thrown, the blackboard, the whiteboard there is covered into just one triangle. One rectangle. The pellets are thrown, subatomic pellets. We take off the thing, you see a line, one line of subatomic pellets that were able to pass through the slit. Now we do the experiment again. We put two slits. We make two rectangular slits. The one that was already there, we add another one. We're throwing the whole board. We're expecting both slits to be filled up, right? In the experiment, though, the pellets turn this way and only go through the original slit. The new one is left empty, even though you're aiming the pellets to hit through. That's not classical physics, what they call it now, because it's different. Classical physics, I throw the ball, that's going to hit that second pellet, those little balls. If there's, let's say, the size of this size, right? If I shoot them and aim them, they're going to make it. They're going to hit that, both slits. Not this Bugs Bunny shit of turning this way. But when they find, as it's going along, they are neither matter nor energy. They are undecided. They are wavicles. They like to call it wavicles, and they are undecided. And it is the observation, the observer's observation that is affecting that, because that's what he saw prior. You see? And it affects the experiment. And that's why when I say we are the creators in our own creation, what we create affects the reality. What you see affects the reality of what is going on. You see? In some type of way, it changes everything. So these sciences are important to understanding the mind, the supremacy of the original man as the creator. Black woman is the earth. And so is neurology, of course. Logically, the study of the brain, the physiological reality of the brain as it connects to the spinal cord and to the entire body, right? And so I wanted to give some notes about it, okay? I had it through 3 different authors that are good to start with here. You know what I'm saying? But before we get into the authors, right? I had some links here I wanted people to look at. I had one that was from nature.com. I wanted people to get the ideas of what generally people say, what is the science of neurology, the burgeoning science, some of the questions. A lot of the questions have to deal with, is the mind really a real thing? You know what I'm saying? Is the brain just some functioning device? Is it the gateway to the brain? How does that all work? You know what I'm saying? So there are arguments about that. The discourse of what's going to be taken. Because remember, scientists only work on things through the questions that they ask. If they never ask a question, they never get answered. If a scientist never asks, could the black man be the true living God and not a mystery out there in space? Most people don't think this way, so they never would get to that experiment. You see what I'm saying?
Can't comprehend it.
Right? You never would do that research. You'd never think about that. You know what I'm saying? So this is the thing. The strength of the scholar, the strength of the scientist is in the question, not the answers. The answers usually you're just explaining shit the way you want to explain it. You know? And you're not even challenging yourself. So I have one piece here about the brain from nature.com, right? I thought that was a very useful one to just begin. I'll just give you some beginner stuff. Yeah, you're right, God. A watch pot never boils. Yeah. It is indeed an interesting phrase when thinking of quantum physics. Word. Then look, decoding the neuroscience of consciousness, because now consciousness, though, is that a real thing? Are we affecting, if now the thought is a real thing, it affects things real, and now we think of things and that affects other things, and we know that we're seeing that thoughts travel in some kind of way because they affect things, because now we're seeing, look, the observation. So now it's thought real, it's consciousness. And then other sides are saying consciousness doesn't exist, but some are. And then what's interesting in the Western world, you're seeing papers trying to discuss it, but not really discuss it, because then they get ostracized. So how do they write about it without writing about it? You know what I'm saying? So you see a lot of that. You have to sift through the detail. So there's an article about that too that I thought would be a good primer for that. And again, these aren't like definitive. I thought they were good articles. They're presenting things not for everyone to agree with them, but just to see the presentation of where things. Because you go, oh, but that's what the white man sees in this. If you're going to study these sciences, you want to know their framework of how they're looking and how you can disagree and look at it with your own lens, right? Sometimes you're not going to be able to extract the best part from literature if you don't really know their framework of how they're writing it. You know what I'm saying? Just the same thing. You're not going to get the most out of reading ancient Chinese texts if you don't really understand the way Chinese think about things. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get the most out of the Tao Te Ching or anything like that if you don't know how they think about things. You know what I mean? And that's what helps, right? You're reading The Art of Peace. When you start to read more Buddhist literature, right? It starts to even be more insightful. The Art of Peace, because now you know some of the framework of Morihei Yeshiva's life and the thought process of where they think of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Just for example, things like this, right? Not just the Asian Chinese way, but also in a very general Asian way, they don't really build as rigidly as saying we add on knowledge. They're not accumulative in that fashion. Their way of first learning is by letting go of things that are wrong. It's a totally different mindset. You know what I'm saying? So let's say if you're training to fight and you just do some dumb punch like this, and that's your punch. That's what you got. He said, you've got to let go of that movement. You know what I'm saying? You're like, no, I do that too. You show me some other shit. Because you want to do the stupid shit, but you want to do the other shit you taught me too. Right? You're going to learn swing chun. You're definitely not going to throw your arm out like that. You know what I'm saying? You're not throwing it past like that. You know what I'm saying? Wing chun is here. Right? You're not throwing it out like that. So now you got to unlearn this dumb shit. You're not doing the death blow. You know what I'm saying? You don't do that, right? So now you learn different. You learn to keep everything here, right? So now you're unlearning. There's a lot of unlearning that goes on. See? So now the frameworks are different. The pedagogy is different, right? The science of their teaching is different. So these are things that you learn, and that's why you have to learn the framework of even the books of science that you read so you can take the best part. You know what I'm saying? Because when we go into these sciences, we don't have this framework, right? And we're bringing a different framework. Like I always give the example, when we look at ancient civilizations and we see, for example, we see the crown in ancient Kemet, we see the crown and the snake is hissing out. They always take that as the sun rays, as hitting that and absorbing the sun rays. But I see it, I'm like, that's a cobra in the striking position. And then the sketches and the walls will all say, we'll have rays. And I'm like, no, that's his mind shooting out. Because the cobra strikes. But they don't look at it because they don't see like the black man can be God. But because I know so, I'm analyzing all these ancient hieroglyphs different. I see it different. I'm not saying that's what it means. I'm saying, is it possible that this means something different? Whereas when you read it, they're like, nah, this is their gods and they were doing this. And the mystery, they believe in the mystery coming in. How do you know they was dealing with mystery? Like, you don't know that shit. You don't know how, Just like when you read a lot of the ancient texts of Tao Te Ching, a lot of those passages definitely read like it's saying like, yo, this is our power. Even when you study Chinese Qi Kung, breath work, energy work, Qi's energy, right? Gung's work, right? They don't draw up the Qi from outside.
Yes, sir.
like the Indian yogis do. The prana, they don't bear witness that. They bear witness that they use the air in the breath as just a tool to guide the chi, and that the chi is first realized through your imagination. Then you start to find where it actually is. And then chi right here, and it starts to sprout out. You know what I'm saying? But you have to just kind of see it and know it within yourself, right? It's totally different, right? So the framework of how people are seeing things affects the whole science. This is important even when you study science stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, and this is another one that I got from Psychology Today. You know what I'm saying? You know what? I'm supposed to be putting all these links here. Why? Where am I copying? I'm copying them and I'm not posting them. Again. All right, let me put. Okay, I put 2 of them in there. All right, let me get the 3rd one in there. Let me get these comments because I see Powerful wrote some stuff. Thank you for that 793. I started watching the movie and I forgot it was 1823. So the slave trade had been going on a long time before the start of the Woman King. You know, like 1823. I mean, we're closer to its end than its beginning, right? You know what I'm saying? Powerful. You said when I was in college playing football, I suffered a concussion and went to see a neurologist. After testing, I went to an alternative doctor who simply looked in my eyes and saw the condition of my brain. Yeah, that's interesting. That reminds me a lot of the science of Qigong, where like each part of the tongue shows them something. Like they analyze you by your tongue, the color, the way it looks. They analyze your face, the eyes, how it looks and stuff. And I know when I used to train with Qigong, he used to say, listen, Sunez, he used to tell all this stuff. You can't be having sex before we train. He used to say like that. And then I'd be like, I'm in my 20s. I'm like, I'm gonna do what I do. You know what I'm saying? We train on Saturday, so it's Friday. Are you telling me? Like, I'm gonna do what I do. He's like, Sunez, you a little sluggish today. I'm like, nah, I'm getting it in. I'm going real hard, but it's not as efficient. You know? He's like, and I'm like, damn, Bobby, yeah, I'm sorry, Bobby. Sorry, Bobby. You know? Powerful continues. He explained that the cells in our eyes are linked to the brain. I had to test under observation and with no observation. Very interesting. Wow, that's interesting. With observation and with no. Wow, yeah, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. All right, so I gave some basis. This is stuff for you to read about. But there's 3 authors that are good to start with in your collection. Again, all these books I have. So if you want some, right? You got mainly. Most of the science of neurology is figured out by this guy died, and now we're going to pick the shit apart, like picking a car apart. A lot of neurology, the brain, and science of the brain is known by that. One of the main ways is when they die, but another main way is if he got injured. You know what I'm saying? So if his brain got fucked up and now he can't move, or this guy's brain got destroyed, his head got destroyed somehow, and now he's like an autistic savant. He's calculating everything. We got to check that shit out. Or there are people that have actually had half their brain removed. If they're young enough and things are not connected, they've had like whole like hemisphere of the brain taken out so they can continue to function. And by the way, if you're young enough, you can survive that. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? So by studying brains that have been destroyed or altered or gone through a unique injury, they can see how it repairs, what it can repair, what it does do to recuperate. Then we can study how the brain channels stuff. So this is what they find. So the anomalies and the crazy situations are where they go. And Oliver Sacks, and he spelled Sacks like the way you spell sack, right? Peace, God.
Peace.
Oliver Sacks wrote a lot of books about this because he saw a lot of situations in his practice and in his studies. So he has a lot of weird books. Like one of the most popular books to start with is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. You know what I mean? And that book has a lot of stories. And there's another one that I haven't read this one because I just finally got it. Musicophilia, Tales of Music in the Brain. And there's a lot of ideas that happen with the brain and music and seeing the discrepancies of what happens. Like, for example, different parts of the brain grow bigger depending on the way a player plays. You know what I'm saying? So, like, violinists, though, will have that part, right? Because it's the left to the right. They'll have this part very well developed here, but not this side. Whereas the pianist who's playing on both hands will have both. You know what I'm saying? That's in another book, though, but it's kind of stuff that you read about in musicophilia, you know, which I'm excited about. Musicophilia, he called it that, right? And Oliver Sacks is famous for having these books about all these weird situations that expose ideas about the brain. You know what I'm saying? Like there many people have gone through brain injuries and their entire personality gets changed. Many people have gone through brain injuries, though, and what happens, what they find is that the telomeres reach out and actually work on the other side of the brain. You know what I'm saying? In other words, the brain can make up for things and overcome certain things. It's really amazing. It's really amazing. You know what I mean? One of the earliest books I read, and it's just more, I always thought it was good, and I felt a lot of people's research is based off him and extending it. So he's a good foundation to know about, is V.S. Ramachandran. And the main book I read from him was Telltale Brain. He had a lot of jewels in there. He had a lot of jewels in there. Like, he actually showed how when people have out-of-body experiences, that's literally because of a certain destruction in the brain. So they'd be thinking like, oh, I saw the mystery god and I was outside of my body. No, that's the way you got hit. And people that have gotten hit in a certain way in their brain, that actually gives them an out-of-body experience. It's not the experience. It's because you're distorted. The brain gets distorted and it's receiving things differently. And that's what gives you the feel. You know what I mean? It's shit like this. And one of the main things that I always took away from his book that became very important and isn't very important now is his thoughts that a lot of it became true, added on to, was about mirror neurons. And that's important. We teach the babies. Mirror neurons are said to be the ability to actually mimic certain things that you see. So, like, you know, a child sees you and then they do as you do, and they're doing that. That's the mirror neurons, able to build these telomeres that branch out and build these things. And he did a lot of research on mirror neurons. You know what I'm saying? And he proposed a lot of things on mirror neurons and set off a lot of the research in that direction. So he's very important, though. But it wouldn't be right to not see the application of it and how, no matter what science we deal with, though, in this Western world, every science always leads to how are they going to bless like this shit. So I got to put you on to David Eagleman. You know what I'm saying? And his book, he has a lot of books, but the book I read recently is called Live Wired, right? It has a longer title, though. I didn't write it there. Hold on. Let me look up the whole title.
David Eagleman.
Yeah. Maybe the Eagleman. You know, just spell this. You're Eagle Man, right? And Livewire, the inside story of the ever-changing brain. Interesting ideas. I want to go through some of these because I just read this recently. You know what I mean? I finally finished this book recently. And I thought that this book, out of all of his books, is the one to read because it's crucial to see the application of it of the science with science, technology, and the advances which are actually crucial to transhumanism. A lot of the stuff that he says is like, he's saying it like, oh, we can help this person, that person. And all I'm reading, like me when I was reading, I was like, man, this is going to be a weapon. Oh, they're going to just weaponize this shit. You know? Like, what happens, a lot of scientists, and a lot of them do this, though. Michio Kaku does this, too. Michio Kaku is a great scientist. A lot of integrity. You know what I'm saying? Japanese man here in America. And he actually was invited to work on a lot of the atomic energy projects. And he was like, I saw what you did to my people. I won't work on that. That's what he, you know, but this guy was building hadron colliders, like smashing particle colliders as a high schooler. You know what I'm saying? So this guy was on the next level. And he, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, whose books are very good too, right? They're very good at teaching the populace. So his books are a lot of fun. And he has this, Michio Kaku has these books about inventions and the future of inventions. And he actually categorizes to the stuff that is probably not going to be here until a century later, and then stuff that's going to be here more sooner, and all that kind of stuff. But when he describes these things, I'm like, yo, this is a weapon. This is a weapon. they're gonna use this on us. They're gonna fuck with us with this. That's all I see with these, because this is all that they do with it, you know. And with David Eagleman, so much of the book, I'm like, yo, he is either an asshole or he's naive white man. You know what I'm saying? Like in Ghost Dog, when he's doing the indigenous guy goes, stupid fucking white man. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing, because it's like, wow, you don't see how this could be used so detrimentally. What's intriguing about it, though, is that he shows some interesting things. And I want to make some points about this, because he shows how the father was right on. The father was very, very intent. Like, we say that it was just like a belief. People will read it like a belief, but this was real. His true understanding was, we have to teach the babies. When he say they're not corrupted, is that they can be molded. He said this shit. Every elder that was with the father used to always tell me, the father said the babies are moldable. They can be shaped. They're not rigid.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They could learn this stuff. Whereas for some reason, the adults, even if they want to learn it, they just can't do it. This is important, because a lot of his research is saying that that is actually scientifically proven. And a lot of the book here is talking about how when you study the brain, the way it develops, after a certain amount of years, there's a balance, right, between plasticity and the rigidity it needs to function. In other words, plasticity means that you can mold it, right? That's good. You're learning lots of things, and you could continue to learn things, right? But eventually, you have to know how to do certain things. Like, for example, right? He gives a simple example. Somebody starts a job, right? They're very, in their mindset is very a high plasticity. They're learning new things, so they have to adapt. I don't know how to do this. I'm learning as I go along. But then, like, maybe a year later, he's like, man, I got this up. You know, he's smooth. He does everything rigidly as he knows it. That's the way you do it. You know what I'm saying? So the brain is kind of like that in general, right? Where the child has that plasticity. And he shows there was this one story of a feral child. You know what a feral child is? Feral means like a child that's never been in society. But this child, this was a horrible thing done to the child. They weren't just left out like in the wilderness. The mother raised the child locked up in a room. And when they found the child, it was filled with its own fecal matter. It was like maybe preteen age already, right? About 11, something like that. And it didn't know how to do anything. The girl didn't know how to do anything. Of course, this parent, the mother, they locked, threw her away, locked up the key. But they tried to be like, okay, the kid just has to catch up, right? Put her in school, things like that. There were so many regular things that she could not catch up to, that years and years later, she could just like say basic words. And she couldn't do basic things like, you know, use the toilets and things like that. Like, she still couldn't really master the stuff. And it was basically showing that the level of pliability of the child's brain is so perfect that all of those essential things taught at that young age are necessary to the growth, and that all the children that lead lives of destruction and things like that, they tend to be children that didn't get that upbringing of those real things that they needed to learn.
So basically you need to be taught, you need to learn how to learn.
They're crucial things that you need to be learned. And that's why I say, in the study, he said, the children that are most affected like this are what? The poorest children. And then, of course, we know that it's going to be the most oppressed children. Because not only are we poor, but they're deliberately not showing us these things. So you could be black and brown and not taught something, even if you had the money to learn it.
Right.
And still not be taught because it's racist. So he was showing that the children are the only age that these things can be done. Like, for example, you know, the best age to teach children languages is when they're real young.
Right.
They can master almost any sound and do all these sounds.
My mother is Dominican, and she told me I used to speak Spanish. She used to teach me Spanish, but then she stopped. So I stopped learning.
Right. So it becomes more difficult when you try to pick it up later. It's because of that ability to sound and stuff. But when you teach kids, you know, stuff when they're young, they catch everything real quick. Right. All of this thing is crucial. You know what I'm saying? This is why, like, when we see, like, look at the Chinese when they do the martial arts, right? And these kids are doing shit. They're doing flips off their head.
Boy,
You see this shit?
I see some shit.
Right? I've seen clips where they actually like they noose the kids. They noose them. And they put their legs in the lotus position. I could do that though, but not on no noose. And the kids are so strong that they can hold their whole weight up like that.
Because they got that, they babies, they still got
You know?
that.
They have that pliability, they have that strength. They're doing splits like it ain't shit. And I'm like,
Still soft.
Remember the day
Yeah,
you do whatever
exactly.
you want music here.
the body's just like the mind. It's just like that. You know what I'm saying? And of course, it'll get rigid to what's good, and they'll need it to be more rigid as they go along because they'll have to do certain things. They said his point was like, if the brain was only had plasticity, then it wouldn't be able to focus, like read a whole book and have concentration and focus. And if you notice, the Chinese, they really had it right, like the Eastern philosophies, because they were teaching the children to learn all these things, but they were teaching a lot of the spiritual ideas later on in life. For some reason, they felt that those couldn't be learned early on. And you had to get them later when the adult was more rigid, that they could focus. Because that's a big thing in Asian religions. The spiritualities, the Buddhism, especially, all the Buddhism, the Mahayana sect, the Zen in Japan, Chan in China. A major concept in Buddhism is focus and concentration. The word Maya itself means illusion. And the idea of losing things to illusion is always talked about. That's why they wouldn't teach the students until they were older. They had to master some kind of focus. Children are learning everything so dynamically that they don't always focus on everything. Their focus could get swayed quickly. You know what I'm saying? So all of this is important. And this book really shows you like some of the studies and stuff that really show these jewels. But it also shows you one interesting thing too. So many concepts in this book. He says that the brain, though, when things are damaged in the brain will take over those parts or take over the parts that are unused. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's say if you don't use your left arm for a long time, right? You lose some of the ability in it. But this arm will get even more detailed to do all the things, you know? And so he talks about it like it's a very competitive, the brain is very competitive. I found that to be a very westernized way of looking at things. Whereas I saw it as more like the brain is taking up the parts that are unused, the best part, and always focused on extending everything outward. You know what I mean? In fact, some of it works both ways though. You know what I'm saying? When the body is being destroyed, the wrong foods and all these things, the brain takes a precedent to leave those areas and focus on other parts. You know what I'm saying? And that's also what you see is true too. And that's how things like cancers and stuff possibly develop, they say, because those parts aren't being used properly. So it's giving it up to focus on the more important things. So give up those body parts. Eventually people eat so savage, they do so many savage things. The environment and pollution, that's also a major factor in cancer is the pollution of the environments. You know what I'm saying? Of course, that's eco-racism. So we're living in environments that are most like that. So we always have to deal with, that's why the diet that we have, we always have to overcome things. It's a side note there, right? But one of the things in this book, and I'll leave it to everyone that reads the book, is that they talk a lot about the technology. And he's very much immersed in it. In fact, that program Westworld, where the robots take over and shit, right? He wrote a lot of that. Like the scientific parts, like he was a consultant for a lot of that. And he talks about even the ideas of the brain having the capacity with technology to develop even more sense receptors, where like we have touch, smell, taste, that we could actually technologically invent and create new ones. Or expand and connect the ones that we have. Where like, in other words, he's saying like we could connect the brain in such a way where it could see all of the information. And this is what he's saying. And he's talking about how Twitter, somebody could see all of Twitter at one time and shit like that and be a networks. And he goes through how Twitter is actually was built on that premise of being a network, a brain network. You know what I mean? So he drops a lot of shit in there. Right? But what's interesting is that the perspective he says, I see as something that could be weaponized immediately. This idea of connecting us is transhuman, because transhumanism is this idea that we'll all be connected some type of way to this technology, and we could be guided by the technology and not ourselves. In other words, you won't need, whenever you need to feel a certain way, you want to feel better, you want to feel this, you don't have to go through all this. You just have to tap into it.
So the recall.
You see what I'm saying? Now, what was interesting that you mentioned that, it's like the download that people think about most is not Total Recall, but the Matrix.
The Matrix, right?
But he says that
right,
the Matrix wouldn't technically work right now, because in the Matrix he's downloading the information, but the problem is the actual human. You know what makes us human is the problem. Our memories, because he has a chapter about memory. Everything that we learn is also part of our memory.
And what about the subconscious mind, though?
It's a reality. Even that would be part of the memory.
Right.
So when you learn something like you encode the kung fu, and he goes, "Whoa, I know kung fu," right? And he goes like that. The problem is that his reality would need to be different and experience it different while he got that information. So he may not learn it the same way. You see, they bypass that in there. That's what he's saying. They bypass that in the program, in the movie. Even though in the movie, it works in the movie, because when they both do it, Neo and Morpheus, they fight differently. You know what I'm saying? Just like real martial artists, no matter how much of the same styles they learn, they still do them differently. You know, height, width, the mentality you have when you fight, all of those change. It doesn't matter what style you learn, you do it slightly different. But reading through this book to me is a great read, because it shows a lot of the direction of the way, not only the science though, but what they're doing with this science though, that could be destructive to us though, and lead to these transhuman things that they're trying to connect us to a whole world. Because these possibilities that he speaks of, they're not trying to connect us to shit. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to connect with us and have control over what we're thinking, and make our limitations smaller and smaller by pinpointing and reducing that algorithm. You know what I'm saying? Look at the way it works though. You could, when you have these things like Spotify or YouTube Music and stuff, right? If you buy them, right? You could actually, if you know what you're doing, you could listen to all music all day of all different types. But you have to go do the research to see, well, what do I look for? You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't, they give you, well, explore this, check this out. You should listen to this. Based on what you already listened to, here's some of the more same shit. So you don't really expand at all. You just hear more of the same shit. And what happens is the brain would actually get more rigid. It wouldn't be able to open up anything, because you'd be hearing more of the same. You know what I'm saying? And you actually would go longer like that. You have less of a ability to have new sounds. That's why in a lot of the ways that I teach, I always want you to open up your palate. I say that all the time. We have to constantly open our palate though. You know what I'm saying? Even like, for example, right? I'm a music writer, music historian. I make sure I spend time listening to music I'm not crazy about. And then trying other music that I don't like and trying to study it. You know what I mean? So even though I'm listening to a lot of the music I love, right, most of the time, right? And there's a lot of music there, right? That'll keep me forever. I always try to open it to other things just to open up the palette. That's the key. You know what I'm saying? If you let them build your algorithm, then you're already in their mental ghetto. You know what I'm saying? And that's the key. So you always want to be able to be like, you know what? This search engine, I could break away from the algorithm just by asking the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Shit, you go through my shit, my algorithm, they don't know what the fuck to do with me. You know what I'm saying? I'm all over with everything. You know what I'm saying? It's all over with everything. So they gotta keep proposing all this different kind of music and shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's the key though. With everything. Music is just an example. You know what I mean? But these books, those authors, the articles that I gave is a way to be a gateway to start studying neurology and see the depth of the science of the mind and get us to thinking about consciousness and how to detail consciousness as a real thing. Because many of the reasons why we're the true and living God have to do with sciences that are just unfolding. You know what I'm saying? The reality of us saying that we're God means that we're saying consciousness is real and that our mind created things because we have a set birth record. So how did you create things before? Because that mind keeps traveling. That consciousness, it travels from mind, son of man, the son of man, right? That man has a son. And then that son of that man has a son. That revolving door, God is the son of man, you see? And that what is being passed on is the mind. It isn't just the physical. You know what I'm saying? And this book proposes a lot of those things. That's the way the science is going to disagree or agree with it. But this is a great way to begin, the studies into neurology. I hope that helps. And if anybody wants some of those books or authors that I mentioned, Harmony, yeah, you got it. I see that you're all over the place. That's the best way to be. The best way to be. You know what I'm saying? We'll always have our favorites and stuff, but you'll be surprised how many favorites you'll find from somewhere else. You know what I mean? From somewhere else. But with this short lesson on neurology, you get your whole into that field. And I'm gonna do this with other fields like melanin. That's very important. I'm gonna do it with obviously quantum mechanics. So that one's a pain in the ass though. I got so many books, and every time I read one, I'm like, but it's missing this. Or I'll be reading them, and I'm like, yo, he said that shit horrible. Like, man, confusing. So I'm like, it's so hard to find books that are like easy. Like, I learned quantum mechanics by reading so many different books that I never really got through a book and was like, that's the one. That's the one to start with. You know what I'm saying? So that one is going to be a little bit more harder. I'll have to do it a different way, not just authors and stuff, but other things too.
That's just similar to when you were talking about like the wavelengths after like a
That's right. That has to do with quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics or quantum physics. That's what we're going to say. That's why like what people get taught in school is just classical physics. But since the 1900s, quantum mechanics was known. The scale that you measure, the subatomic, is called the Planck scale, named after Max Planck. He was discovering things in the early 1900s. You know what I'm saying? Einstein was arguing against many of the things in quantum mechanics. And when did he live? This stuff was all around, but they don't teach that in school. And when they teach it in school, it's to use quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is used for everything. I'll give you an example. Quantum mechanics is what builds this. You know what I'm saying? The computers that we have, everything like that, on that level, to make things that small and stuff, to make it that small and that viable. So quantum mechanics is like the Western world. It's taught functionally, but not taught dealing with the self. They don't teach that way. That's not the Western way of teaching. And sometimes we have to get out of that though. You know what I mean? That's why also is one of the reasons why I like to have you read ancient Asian texts, ancient Eastern philosophies. You know what I'm saying? Right, as mentioned in Sufic literature, all these things. So that way you get out of your mindset of just the westernized world. You want to use all of these mentalities and be able to understand the mentalities so you can get the best parts. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just doing what most of our people do, they just reject it, and that's not really going to help you analyze. You can't extract things that you're rejecting all back. You know what I'm saying? Right? How are you gonna learn? You know what I'm saying? And that's why we see a lot of brothers with the black power shit, and they be saying some science shit, and I'm like, where'd you get that shit from? Like, you making up shit. Like, they be making up shit about, the black man the white man is some kind of alien. He comes from alien, and he has like and they go OD. And I'm like, yo, he's not a reptilian from another planet. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't kicked out of a third planet on another dimension by the Anunnaki, and then he flew here in a bubble that, like, they be saying shit like that. And I'm like, yo, this is not, there's nothing to support that. Like, you're saying crazy shit, They're saying crazy shit. And some people have some pseudo shit. To me, it's not pro-black if you're saying that black people from outer space came and gave shit to us here. It's always the black man that is here that is weak and useless.
Right.
So now it's a black man, but he came from outer space now.
Yeah.
Like you're always taking it away. Like this one here is always whack. No matter what, he's always trash. You know?
You know what I say about that? Like how they say about Jesus was an immaculate conception, but Jesus was black. His father's black. His mother's black. But you were saying that his father's seed didn't make Jesus. He just came out of it.
Right. So he's an anomaly.
Right.
Great black man.
Right.
He's an anomaly.
His seed didn't make Jesus.
Yeah.
So that gives you. So you can't believe that you can do that.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, the tip top of any field, we can say he's the greatest. We can say Michael Jordan's the greatest, but Jordan is not an anomaly in the reality of things.
Right.
And that's what makes it so amazing. You know? So we got to look at that in all ways and stuff, but we can't be so anti the approach because the scientific method has a lot of merit to it. It gets abused by scientists today. And when you go do it, they're not using the scientific method. So there's no reason to say the scientific method ain't work. The scientists today ain't using it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They go against it. They disavow it. They disregard it. So they're not using it. They teach us the method that's right and exact, but they don't use it. And then we go to be pro-black and shit. We go, oh, that shit is just white man shit and this and that. No, that's how you do science. You ask questions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You see, you test it if it's real. If you think, you still, you know, they go, everything stays a theory, right? That's the same thing that we say. We say, listen, don't believe anything. Always be testing. So it could be right and exact, tested again and again. They still call it a theory. That's how we should be looking at things. There could always be something else we learn. You know what I'm saying? So these are the things. We got to take the best part. You know what I'm saying? We can't be doing things emotionally like that. Or else we won't get any understanding with anything. You know? Harmony, you said next week, can we build on monogamy versus polygamy?
Oh shit.
Okay. Oh shit, the earth is getting me in trouble here. She's trying to get me in. No. But yeah, I definitely let me write that down. So copy and paste that so that way I could remember. A lot of times I don't do all the notes because just like everybody, I have a one-track mind. Like I'll be alone and we're ready to write. I'm like, which book am I doing now? And I'll just be lost in that shit. And I'm like, it's only like, oh shit, tomorrow's Thursday. I gotta, you know what I'm saying? And it's always like that. It's always like that. You know what I'm saying? I get, caught up in catching up with right. But that's a good way of, and the social histories, right? Because it's more of a social reality and stuff like that, Good suggestions here. I don't think I've ever read that Sean Carroll book, Something Deeply Hidden. Not sure if I have I? I might have the book. I be having books I ain't even. Something Deeply Hidden. Yeah, I'm gonna do an answer to that. I know I didn't read it though. That doesn't mean I wouldn't have it though. Cause I'd be over collecting, which is a good thing. So when I do the quantum mechanics lesson, I'm gonna go through like the general introduction books, but then branch off into the books that got the real jewels, the real deep shit. So you could have them in your collection and get up to it and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So always give you all those things, But all right, unless anybody has any questions, I always say 6 to 8. It always goes over. I can't. You know what I'm saying? What do we need to do? Sam, you have to. You got to email me? Email me. So that means I got to write down. I'm behind in that, so I'm gonna email you. I'm gonna look through. I'm gonna look through, and I'm gonna send you things to begin with. Okay.
I started my show this week, man.
Oh, that's peace. That's
my
peace.
first show, man. So I gotta book a date for you at 07 to come through, man.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. I'm writing it here. I expect an email from you, Muhammad. Okay.
I can do another one. I'll send you one.
Yeah. When in doubt, though, if you send me an email, I always tell students, take that email you sent and forward it back to me.
Got you.
Be like, put it back on my pile. Be like, Sunez, you didn't get to this shit. Like, don't, you know? I mean, that's how I got 120 though. That was me, so I always forget though. The next set. And I'd be like, that was me. I need that next set. I would come here every day and I would be like, that was me. You know what I mean? I said, where's that was me? He said, he come. I was like, yo, I need the next set, man. I already quoted the 1 to 14. I need that 1 to 40.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, yo, we'll go to Staples though. Make copies and shit. And then we went to Staples and made copies and shit. You know? But yeah, it have to be on me because I'll be forgetting sometimes. Yeah. You know? And not because I'm not, you know, like willfully forgetting. I'm literally just so one track mind to just write. You know what I mean? Or read, you know what I mean? But this weekend I don't have my little one though, so I definitely won't get distracted and shit.
All right, so I got a question. You say we're creators, co-creating our reality.
Right.
I remember one time I was listening to some shit DMX had said, right? He was like, you know,
I didn't expect that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But peep this shit.
Yeah.
So he was like, we got free will, but sometimes we don't always have free choice. And in reference to, you know, first degree, us being God, this, that, and other, I'll be like, did we choose?
Let me put that in a different way.
God.
I know exactly where you're going, right? Somebody was trying to argue with me on the thing because they wanted to get at me and shit like that. And they was dissing everything. He even said I had Napoleon complex and shit like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know? I'm just saying this though, right?
We wouldn't say that to
A lot of people say that shit to me.
We wouldn't say that to you.
No, a lot of people say that shit about being short and he's being more aggressive. He has a Napoleon complex and shit like that, right? Nobody that says that to me though has ever done what I did at this height and this body weight. So they have not had to get the things from people. Like people go, oh, it's a Napoleon complex. People don't really know how much people make jokes or ridicule the height that I have, or try to use that as a way to have leverage on me.
Yeah, but your knowledge supersedes.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If the life we live is physical and in the street, a lot of people don't know how many people I had to fight just because they thought they could get one up.
Like I said, he wouldn't say
You
that
see what
to
I'm
you. They don't know who they
So they don't know what's happening to me at this height.
Right, exactly.
And the reality that I live though. I'm just
To create said complex.
to create whatever you think is the said complex.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, and a lot of people that are bigger would be a lot more humble if they were my height.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And they certainly wouldn't be as brash as me if they were my height though. They'd be quiet as a church mouse. You know what I'm
They
saying?
don't know what you know though.
But we would hope, right? But one of the guys was saying to me like, it's like they. I notice on YouTube, a lot of people that comment on YouTube, this is their church. These videos are their church.
Oh yeah, right.
They're not trying to be a 5%er.
Right.
They're trying to go to church though, and they don't want to see they watch NOI stuff. They watch other black guys talking and shit, Black Power brothers and shit like that, talking their shit, whatever it is. You know what I mean? That Umar's here. All that. It's all DC and Marvel universe.
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? The people that are gonna do our heroing, and it's not me. So I don't want you to have beef with Umar because who the hell are you to say this though here? And who's this? And don't say shit about rappers because that's also some of the heroes that doing shit that I don't intend to ever do. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not doing shit. I'm watching these videos here and I'm not doing anything. And I'm not going to do anything. Right? So if I say the truth about certain people, they're like, well, who are you to say the truth though? Because they don't do the Googles though. Nobody ever thought like, let me Google who this guy is though that said all this shit. You know what I'm saying? So he was saying that he's trying to argue with me that the NOI does teach that the black man's God. And I'm like, yo, if they teach that, then think about how badly they must be teaching this shit. The shit says the black man is God, and no one out there, and I like, yo, I've been here for years, half of my life, and no Muslim has ever told me, and I've never seen any Muslim tell somebody, you're the true and living God.
I've never had that. Never. I would love to do
They'll be like, oh, yeah. No, this is not a bill. Yeah, that too. Nah, that's not a bill.
No, that's exactly
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
that's not a bill. You know what I'm saying? Being in a corner and be like, today's mathematics is born. That's biting because you don't even know the whole science on that. So this is the truth as I was being asked, and I'm telling the truth, right? He's trying to say that no matter what, and I'm telling him that, and he's like, but we are Muslim. Every man is God, but he's Muslim as well because we submit to the laws of the universe. I said, but if we made it though, then how could we submit to something that we made? See, all of the laws, see, you think about this. You mentioned the conscious and the unconscious brain, right? There's no difference though. The difference between the unconscious is of what you already learned that became normalized. And now it's normalized so you could learn something else. You know where I came to that realization? The study of breath. I'll give you an example, right? Most people in here in America breathe like this. They don't breathe good. You know what I'm saying? They breathe just up top chest. You got, when you learn Kung Fu, you're breathing all bottom. The whole thing. And the mentality is different. This isn't an organ like other organs. You know, like you can't test your organ and shit. Like you can't really make your organs do shit like consciously. Like I can't make my heart just like make a beat like with my heart. Like it's doing its beat. I can't make it do a break beat. You know what I'm saying?
That kind of goes back
right? But
to a point
the lung can be controlled, right? The lung can be controlled. And now we learn how to make that breath, right? But the whole body is like that, God. The whole body is like that. The greater the martial artists, though, they're able to control the heart rate. They're able to control these things that were considered, in the unconscious, right? They control all of this. So what happens? The way it happens is that all of these things, they were free will. You see what I'm saying? But they're also the laws of what is right and exact. What is most right and exact is what becomes adhered to. And so as things get created, it says, this is right and exact, so it will be like this. Those things don't change. If you change them, then you suffer the consequences. So people breathing now, they're thinking like, no, I chose to breathe like this. This is the way I breathe. No, you're actually suffering the consequences because you're not breathing correctly. You see? Other people aren't doing the right things. They suffer the consequences. We're not submitting to any of the laws of nature. These are the laws that we made that are most right and exact, that we created within this reality we made. You see? This is the way that it works. It just is. When we look at it from this day and time as it already is being. Because we're learning of ourselves as we're already being, as a being. So we're learning backwards of how we became.
Right.
How we born it all.
Right.
Because we are what? Being. You see? That's why the universe has that dichotomy of saying it's a wisdom knowledge. 21st letter in the alphabet. How could the wisdom go before one? How could the wisdom go before the knowledge? But we're doing things in a world that we're still doing the knowledge to. We go back to go forward. You see? And that's the depth that we're living in, right? Son of man. Man has a son. The son doesn't know anything. Seems like just a blank slate. But the son learns the best of the father and goes beyond. See how that works? It's more like a rotary dial, right? Cipher, right? So when we talk about this thing about And that's why I disagree with this concept of we submit. You know what I'm saying? These are the things that we accepted. What we are living now that is not right and exact is we don't have a knowledge of self, so we don't know what we accepted. And what we accepted was what? What we created. We created this. We created the way that we would do this. We created the way that we breathe. We developed the way that we would develop consciously. And when we master it, it becomes part of that other side. What people say is the subconscious, but it's all the brain working in unison. You see?
But you see how you say we're born and then we being, and now we're trying to work our way back and figure out.
Because what's interesting is that
process.
The mastery of being the true living God is that every sphere of reality is mastered, right? So it is not only the infinite, that the mind always created everything and it's infinite, but we're also not just mastering the infinite, but we're also mastering the finite. And so we are in this finite body mastering this realm, all realms, time, space, infinity, and the finite.
But this is the part that fucks me up. That I don't got the understanding yet. Because some shit seem predestined and like curated before your existence, in the sense of the free choice. I was born in Brooklyn. I was born with certain parents. I was born December 31st. Did I chose that before I existed in the physical, or was this something predestined?
How do you know that
I don't know either, but I just know I was born.
According to what I said,
Kings County Hospital.
According to what I said, in the subconscious mind, you wouldn't know if you didn't decide that. The way I was taught, like you were taught, I was mentioning freedom, right? Papa Wu, he absolutely would say that we chose ourselves to be born.
And I've heard that before.
Right?
We chose our parents. We chose, I wanted to get your seat on
that.
that.
The idea is how could we not? So I look at what I've done and what I know how to do and what I can be and what I am be, right? And I say that there's no other time that I could be born. You see? No other time would I have this knowledge of self in this certain way. You know what I'm saying? And see, it's only a select few that will be conscious of that. It's only the ones that become conscious. And even according to the ancient things, that's why I mentioned the martial arts and things like that, because there's a deeper awareness of the body. There is no limitation of the awareness that you would have of any part of your body. They put no limitation on it. So it isn't like they say, well, you could be conscious of this part of your body, like the lungs that we do in the breath work, but not this part. You know what I'm saying? Or not the heart, or not the liver, or not these other organs. You would be aware of every single thing and how it's working within you and how you're working. You see? A lot of that comes about from understanding the physical structure, right? I said the people that know, they'll know that by the way they look at your eyes, like the God was mentioning in the chat. Or I said that the way that they used to look at the parts of the face, particularly like the tongue, right? And they'll know the level that you're at of health at that moment, or if there are any ailments. These are all crucial. These are all crucial. But what we confuse for mystery is really just the subconscious. But we make the subconscious like it is trapped in that subconscious. You see? And that's the part that not only do I not bear witness to, and the elders that taught me obviously don't bear witness to it, but it actually is something that the ancients did not bear witness to either. And segs today in modern people that carry the weight of the martial arts, they don't bear witness to that. They would have never taught Qigong. They would have never taught that you could use your lung organ to have complete control over it. You know what I mean? And have complete control over the Qi that deals with all of the organs in the body. Because the deeper you study, though, they're doing everything. They have books called bone washing and tendon cleansing. You know what I'm saying? It goes deep. They're becoming aware of even the tendons in the damn leg.
Somebody was telling me something about that when I went up to Guyana. It was like they're cleaning like your joints and things like that. How your joints hold on like toxins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it gets real deep. The awareness gets deep, and I say it's just we're all coming from a state of ignorance of the depth of our awareness. It's not just self-distance isn't who you think you are. It's engaging and finding out exactly all that you actually are. You know what I mean?
Don't crucify me. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna add on to the whole submit thing. Because, you know, in our lessons and we say we God and he also we made devil also. So when I hear the submit aspect of it, it's like I could submit to the God that's within me, or I could submit to devil that's in me also.
I would say if someone
submitting to be righteous.
If someone did devilishment, I would say that they succumbed to weakness. I wouldn't say they submitted on that level. I would say they succumbed because it's a failure, right? And I wouldn't say that they submit to be themselves because themselves is God. You know what I'm saying? Right? You just are. You just are. You see? And that's the thing. We have to understand that the state that we were in as an 85 was the unnatural position.
We're like in the
not
85
this
world.
Not this position. Yeah. But not this position. This is not the position, you know? Whereas the way it works, though, when we have knowledge of self, our life is difficult. I can't tell you how many people, for whatever reason, right? One of the things they say, having this knowledge this long, they'll be like, sometimes it's hard, man. I'm like an outcast. So I'm like this, and when they've had a long time, you know what I'm saying? Right. And you've had it long enough where you know what I'm talking about, you know? And this is what happens, you know what I'm saying? But it was truly, don't let it fool you. It was truly out of the more awkward state that you're coming out of. This is not it. You know what I'm saying? It's the world that is adapting to us, though. You know, they're adapting to us, not the other way around. Because we are the ones that are affecting it now. Having this knowledge of self, we are affecting it more so than that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I live with my family. A lot of them they do 85 things. They do 85 things, right? And so I'm the outcast. I'm the only one not doing it though. But they're in my world. I'm not in their world. This is all mine.
Like you said,
you know what I'm saying? Because I'm the one that's doing things I have shown to be right and exact. So when I see people doing the things that are detrimental, the things that hurt, the inconsistencies that breed uselessness of even the knowledge that they know, right? You don't wisdom the knowledge, you know, it's useless, right? These are all things that make me feel awkward, but it's really not me who's not right and exact. It's them. You see what I'm saying? But because we're living and breathing and we have hearts, minds, we feel things, we're the ones that feel like outcasts. And yeah, I'm not the one that's doing things wrong and incorrect, right? So it's odd, God. It's odd, but I certainly don't submit though. You know what I'm saying?
So I had heard somebody say something about nature, like submitted to nature, and then I was like, we don't do that because we believe we.
You know what's funny? Nearly every single fruit and vegetable. I was teaching my niece this. Who's 10, about GMOs and everything. Nearly every single fruit and vegetable, though, we had a hand in making sure that it develops in that particular way and becomes that particular fruit and vegetable. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Since time immemorial. You know what I'm saying? We're not working with, you know what I'm saying? Like we're not submitting to nature either. We work with nature. You know what I'm saying? When we treat nature as we would treat ourselves, then it does what we expect it to do, not the other way around. You know what I'm saying? And when we understand nature, then we can survive and thrive. You know what I'm saying? We made this home. You know what I'm saying? It has all of the fluctuations. People go, we don't want chaotic weather and all that kind of shit. But this world is chaotic mentally. You know what I'm saying? And the weather that comes in these systems and stuff, because we don't know ourselves as a whole, macro whole, as a whole. Even as God's right now, We know ourselves micro. So we don't know the larger macro projections of the weather. We don't know what will happen here or how will this affect this. I'm not talking about like tomorrow's weather and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's gonna rain Saturday and shit. You know? I'm talking about the whole direction of the earth. You know what I'm saying? These are things that we don't know. We're not in tune.
I don't know how true this is, but I had heard something about like monks being able to like manipulate.
This is something that was talked about with many of the indigenous because they had different sensory abilities. You know what I'm saying? Right? All that stuff about like knowing when the rain would come, or even putting their head their ear to the ground and hearing things on a longer distance. This is all real.
I mean,
However, just remember that like when they say like the indigenous, they put the ear on the floor and they can hear the horses coming. The earth wasn't like it is now though.
Right.
Like we go back into like 10,000 years ago. Take one of the indigenous, take him here. He's not gonna hear a damn thing. He didn't put his ear on tar. He didn't put his ear on concrete. You know what I'm saying? This would be like it's all muzzled. What would he hear putting his ear on the concrete?
Might
Fucking
be
train.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yo, the 2 trains coming. My app told me the same shit. So that's the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? It's like the world was different. That's why you have to have a historical framework. People be like looking at things exotically and you're not thinking like it was a different world. You know what I'm saying? The earth is different. It's really in tune. You know what I'm saying? You could hear things. Sound traveled farther. You know? Look, we live in a city here. We already know that weather is affected just by the way the buildings are structured. Right? You go downtown where the buildings are bigger. The weather is colder. The wind patterns are more chaotic though. One block is windy, other blocks is blocked off. One block is sunny, the other block is not. Right? Because you're dealing with all these tall buildings and shit like that. Right? Everything is real. You know what I mean? Everything is real. You know? Everything is denatured. You know? So we look at how things were so natural. Well, we have to think about that too. I hope that answers really the insight of what you were throwing out there, Ron. Well, it makes some sense too.
Yeah.
Yeah, powerful said we don't submit, we bear witness. Yeah. Trying to see the line of thought here as I missed something to say. Malik, Einstein actually disagreed with a lot of the general premises of quantum mechanics, and some of his disagreements and articulated issues with it actually helped to develop the questions that would further it. You know what I mean? So yeah. All right. I see the stuff about height here. Everybody's saying their height now. I'm going back here. Everybody's saying their height though. You know? All I know is nobody says that dumb Napoleon complex shit with me.
They don't say it to you.
Nobody says that shit to
They
me.
say at you, but they don't say it to you like
Yeah. And that's fine though. That's okay with me. instead of looking at a whole video, like a whole 15 minutes I was talking there in that video, and saying what you disagree with though and shit. They got you talking about like, yeah, I don't know how they had to do it. All right. If nobody has any questions, I'm certainly done here. I'm interested in what you say about the macro and the micro powerful. Oh, okay. Could I build shortly on answering questions in the 1 to 40 with your own understanding, like we were building on a while back? The God Divine Education I will build on that today. No, it's simple. So these degrees are hard to memorize, though. So I always say, have your own understanding, your own insights about the degrees, jot them down. If you don't have an understanding, try to put what you're confused about in questions. And this personalizes the degree. That's really the word. The personalization of the degree to yourself is what helps you memorize it. Some of these degrees, you're memorizing them, but you're not learning them just yet. You just memorize them. So if you have like questions about them or things that resonate with you, like confusion, those particular words can help stay in your head if it's an important question or if it's important insight, if you put it into your own words and stuff, you know. So that's what I am with that, you know. So it's very important, you know. The more you personalize it and not try to explain it. That's why I say personalize it. So you personalize it with a true, unique understanding if you have one. But if not, then you personalize it with good questions. You know what I'm saying? Good questions about it. Questions about what you don't know, or just, you know, it could even be like just articulating what you really like about the degree, what makes it resonate with you. You know, personalizing the degree is very important. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I mean with that. You know, because over all these years, there's going to be some degrees that you forget about, that you don't have as strong, and there's others that you have very, very strong because they mean so much to you. So the ones that aren't as strong, you know, you work to get them that place, you know, and you keep personalizing it, right? You research them. You do all you can to personalize them. I hope that answers the question, guys. You know, but I'm gonna put my email there because there's some people here and they don't have it, and some of the notes. If you just want like all the notes and stuff in one shot, I could just email you the notes or any of the books I was talking about, any of the authors. I have a lot of books from all of these authors. These are ones that I selected as a good starter. You know what I'm saying? But actually, I have a ton of Oliver Sacks books, and I have a lot of Dave Eagleman books. You know what I mean? So some of the authors I have a lot of. You know, like they have collections, so I have the whole thing. You know, I take everything. Right? So with this said, I'm gonna let the chat group go. I'm gonna say peace to y'all. Right? Peace to the gods and earths. Peace to all the anyone that was doing the knowledge. No, nobody has to let us teach them. Problem is they're gonna learn anyway. Right? They're gonna learn anyway. They're gonna get this work. They're gonna get this work. All right. So with that said, I'll let everybody go. All right. Peace.